Hey, what's going on, everybody? How are you doing? Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope you guys are doing super good today. We are going to get back today into doing some space news. I've been working behind the scenes on a couple of branding things, if you will, for us to be able to get back into space news with. So we have quite the lineup today that we're going to run through. Everything from the fantastic launch that happened today from Falcon 9 for the Cygnus mission. Of course, we'll talk about the problems, surprise, surprise, that Cygnus had as part of NG-21. We also have some great updates to kind of recap from SpaceX regarding their Raptor 3. We got some new images from Raptor 3 comparing it to Raptor 1, Raptor 2. We have some Raptor vacuum engine footage that was released not too long ago. We have a lot. Also, Viper mission may or may not be looking to get saved, which is good. That's good. We'll talk about that as well. What's up, Thomas? How are you doing? Gateway remains too heavy for SpaceX's failure of a rocket. Yes. Wait, Gateway remains too heavy for SpaceX's failure of a rocket? What do you mean SpaceX's failure of a rocket? Explain yourself. What's up, Nova? How are you doing, buddy? So this is going to be our space and our space industry update segment. I'm dubbing it from this day forward as our go no go poll. So I've separated all of our news stories today on basically good news or go, and bad news or no go. Falcon Heavy is weak. Falcon Heavy is not ideal for certain missions. Yeah, go figure, right? Falcon Heavy is not an end-all be-all solution, right? We've talked about this in EJ's stream. We've talked about this here on my stream not too long ago. Like, just shelling things out to commercial enterprise, especially late in the design phase, it's not a good, hope is not a tactic. Let's just put it that way. What's up, Dad? How are you doing? Yeah, and that's fully expended, yeah. Or Gateway is too thick. No, it's more along the lines of Falcon Heavy is very, very good at lifting heavy things into low Earth orbit and maybe even like into geostationary orbit, but it really falls off when you have to do anything really anywhere beyond that, just because its upper stage is certainly not designed using RP1, basically kerosene and liquid oxygen, as your upper stage. Not very efficient. Compare that to something like Vulcan Centaur, right? Centaur using hydrolox is capable of like 485 seconds of specific impulse, in comparison to like the upper stage on Falcon 9, which might be able to get like what, 360 seconds, something like that. Like, just a very, very clear difference in the miles per gallon, so to speak, that the upper stages can get. Heavy things to Leo up to like 24 tons, nothing past that since the payload adapter isn't rated for anything heavier. Yeah, there you go. That's very true. Just put Gateway on SLS. Yes, we have talked about that as well. I really hate seeing the mentality of making things cheaper by shelling them out to commercial, meaning taking them off of the expensive booster, instead of saying, hey, wait a minute, our booster's really expensive right now because our manufacturing production rate is 1.5 every year. 1.5 every year. And that's actually, I don't even think realized yet. I think we're still at like 1 every year, if that. If you guys recall, NASA with Jacobs and Boeing implemented a plan to ramp up production to 1.5 a year, meaning that every 2 years, right, we can get essentially 3 rockets. So that is great, but yeah, you're starting to ramp up production. That arguably that ramp up in production isn't even sufficient enough, and then you're looking to take away missions from that booster after you ramp up production. Like, that just doesn't, none of that makes sense to me from any sort of point. I really think that the way to solve this problem is NASA needs to be run like a business in certain aspects. Of course, it's not going to be like a one-to-one But right now, NASA is run like a bunch of different small businesses, right? Like JPL seems to be completely independent of Marshall Space Flight Center. Marshall Space Flight Center is completely independent from Glenn Research Center and all of these, and Johnson Space Center, right? All of these different research centers are like fighting for the same money. They're basically competing against each other, and it's just not great. It's not great. But if they could all be unified as like a conglomerate, like one business, that would be absolutely amazing. That would be better, at least in my opinion. There needs to be more money thrown towards SLS and less to commercial. We get bogged down by just relying on commercial. Very true. Yeah, I don't think commercialization is the end-all be-all solution by any means. Absolutely not. Commercial is great for doing certain things. Commercial is great for like manufacturing systems that are already known. Like if like SpaceX was looking for like a satellite for low Earth orbit Earth observation, well, guess what? Maxar with Worldview does that fantastically, and they have a system that they know how to manufacture, and they can do that very, very cheap in comparison to what NASA could do. Like that's what you use commercial for, is using them to develop things that they already know how to develop. But yeah, all of these like human rated systems going to the moon, commercial entities don't know how to do that. No commercial entity has that capability right now, right? Integrated mission planning, that'd be great. Yeah, going back to an integrated mission architecture, I would love that. Because if you really look at SLS, the human landing system, commercial crew, all of these different systems, none of it is like actually an integrated architecture. If it was an integrated architecture, you would have everything working together, designed for every individual piece. And yet we still have just like one thing here completely separate from this thing over here, which can still work from this thing, but these things are independent. It's a mess. It's a mess. Yeah, no, I'm good, Lund. Thanks, bud. All right. But yeah, but you need a vision for that and someone to champion the mission. Very true. If I were to use pizza analogy, NASA needs to be less like a bunch of mom and pop pizza shops and more like a Domino's or Pizza Hut. In my opinion, yeah, I think that's accurate. But anyways, chat, we are going to go ahead. Hey, what's up, Cosmos Sim? How are you doing? We are going to get started here with our go no go poll segment, which is going to be our name for our handy dandy, very fancy space news segment. That's what we're going to be doing, chat. So, yeah. Let's see what trouble we can get into. So, as you can see here on my left, your right, we're going to have our go and no-go news. Basically, everything that's under the go category is what yeah, very fancy, yes. Pat on the back for me for sure, like, whoo! We are going to be covering all of this news under go. That is basically the good news, things that are happening right in the industry. And then everything under no-go is going to be what I have found today to be kind of a miss, not so great, even bad news, and that's what we're going to run with. So, first on the list here, chat, is going to be our handy-dandy launch schedule. So as it stands right now for our upcoming launches, of course, we have Starlink mission after Starlink mission after Starlink mission after Starlink mission. They just keep going, chat. They're at like 6,800 satellites launched to date for Starlink. I think they have like 6,500 operational. Pretty great track record. Yeah, they're pushing it. Remember, Starlink's original goal was to get up to 8,000 satellites in its operational shells, and then extending that all the way out to like 20,000 satellites over their entire life period. Yeah, they're hitting that, no problem. Remember, SpaceX wants to launch like 120 missions this year, and they're kind of on track to do that. I think they fell behind a little bit in that summer lull that occurred like back in late May, early June. But regardless, even if they keep on the same track that they are now, they're going to hit like 110, which is just absolutely amazing. A rocket engine that will blow up on the stand. What about the rocket engine that will blow up on the stand? Hopefully not. But anyways, So that's what we have to look forward with here in the upcoming week. But also, chat, as we were saying just a second ago, we have another Worldview sat launch as well as an Arctic satellite broadband mission launch. Both of these are set to launch here next week. Both of them, surprise, surprise, on a Falcon 9 from SpaceX. But aside from all of the SpaceX launches that they are spoiling us with, we did get a little bit of an update on a possible, what I can only assume is the movement of the next Vulcan stage going to Cape Canaveral on rocket ship ahead of Debbie, the tropical storm slash hurricane that's right off the coast right now. What's up, Panta? How are you? Yes, fellow nerd here. So we got a fantastic image here from Tori Bruno, the man, the myth, the legend, the CEO of ULA, who shows us this fantastic coverage of rocket ship. This is actually the name that ULA has named this boat for carrying all of the different rocket core stages. So rocket ship has in fact landed at Cape earlier today ahead of Debbie, the tropical storm slash hurricane off the coast of Florida, and moving Vulcan core stage off the boat. V003 right there. Super nice. The space cowboy, exactly. Howdy, right? Howdy. So Thomas, for V003, is this going to be for flight 3, or is this actually for the second certification flight? Or is the second certification flight core stage already here at Cape Canaveral before this landed? We'll launch in a VC Vulcan Centaur 4. Interesting. Okay. This is for flight 3, not flight 2. Ah, okay. So flight 2 is already here then. Most excellent. Because remember, like I just showed a second ago on the on our handy dandy launch schedule, we do have our second Vulcan flight, our second basically flight number 2, our certification flight, that Vulcan kind of just put on the schedule after some demand from the United States Space Force and the United States Air Force, looking for additional flights, and then also because Dream Chaser got delayed and other things got delayed, so they were like, you know what, we're just going to fly another one for certification so we can then start ramping up our operations for basically targeting DoD satellite missions. That is now scheduled no earlier than September 16th. So hopefully that sticks. I haven't heard anything otherwise for that not sticking, but yeah, Vulcan ULA ramping up their production, ramping up into full-scale operations. All that stuff is definitely a go for launch, which is fantastic. By the way, did you know you can just buy a cowboy hard hat and a ULA sticker and cosplay Tori Bruno? That's fantastic, and that sounds like what I'm going to be for Halloween this year. Thank you for that, Panta. Fantastic. The one that was going to launch Dream Chaser was already at the Cape and was repurposed for certification flight 2. Gotcha. Is the front and rear of the semi-trailer connected, or are they 2 separate trailers? They should be 2 separate. Like there's nothing here. Totally separate. I think they actually have a guy controlling it, right? Yeah, they usually have a guy on the back controlling it. Yep. It's basically like one of those transporters, those really, really long boy transporters that we see, kind of independently controlled. I'll dim you a link to the hat on Discord. Much appreciated. Fantastic. I was going to say that's a long trailer if it's one piece indeed. I need to be Jebediah Kerman for Halloween. Yes, that would be also a fantastic cosplay. Okay. So yeah, that kind of concludes our original launch updates. Like I said, we're moving core stage around. ULA rocket ship was there at Cape, delivering our Vulcan serial number 3, which is going to be used after our certification flight. But now let's move on to our next bit of news, which is all going to be about SpaceX, chat, because of course, I'm sorry to say, but SpaceX is killing it. In a fantastic way. They're definitely doing good work in terms of their massive, very, very high launch cadence, their updates with Raptor 3, their updates at Starbase. We'll get into all of that. They're moving very, very fast. So the first little bit here is, we've already covered this a little bit here. But this is Raptor 3. Raptor 3 serial number 1. If you're not first, you're last, chat. This is the very first engine of the Raptor 3 variant that we have seen from the production line. This is not a render, let me add. This is the true system. And so this was coming from Elon here just a couple days ago. We actually saw this on the day that it came out. And we recently got some side-by-side pictures of basically Raptor 3 in comparison to Raptor 1 and Raptor 2. And this is what it looks like, chat. Look at the difference. Raptor 1 is a mess, as it should be. Most of these lines are like pressure transducers and different thermocouple connections and everything like that, purge lines, what have you. It's basically a bunch of engineering sensors, and this is a perfect example of just make it work first and make sure we have enough sensors on it to understand what's good and what's bad. Then Raptor 2 entered a more streamlined production phase, and then Raptor 3, this doesn't have all of the connections to it. As you can see, there's still some red tags. They don't have all the connections, but very much streamlined. Like, this is production model. This is what we're going to go with for the foreseeable future. Absolutely amazing how streamlined everything has gotten. The engine looks so simple that it looks like it was made in Blender. I agree. It's amazing looking at Twitter feeds and seeing just how many people are like, oh, it's a render. Like, if you look at it in this picture, especially with the lighting off of the matte finish for the engine, totally does look like a render, right? Like, you can see like a lighting effect here, but it's a matte finish paint job on the Raptor engine, and yeah, that's what it looks like. But then when you see it in comparison in a better lighting source next to the other engines, yeah, very, very clear improvements made in the actual real thing, which is actually very awesome. That's gonna make some nice confetti when it pops on the vertical stand. Absolutely. I'm so excited to see this thing blow up, because that means you're learning, correct, chat? Old and busted, new hotness. Exactly right. What's up, Stuart? How are you? Sent you the DM on Discord. Much love to you. Thank you, thank you. What's up, Rayson? How are you? But yeah, so this is all coming from SpaceX. We also have some performance metrics that SpaceX has given us. We have a thrust of 280 tons of force. So that's a lot. Specific impulse 350 seconds. Remember, this is the sea level version. The vacuum version can get like 30 to 40 seconds better than that. Engine mass 1.5 metric tons, which is actually fantastic when it has all of the side vehicle commodities, all of the connections, the control box, what have you. It's around 1.7 metric tons, which is, like I said, absolutely, very much streamlined. So yeah, in terms of like what you can actually get for the, I guess, overall thrust to weight ratio of the engine itself, we're looking at like 160 thrust to weight ratio for just the engine. Now, of course, on something like Super Heavy and Starship, it still Super Heavy still requires like 40 engines, right? But in terms of just the engine, it is like a thrust to weight ratio of like 160, which is just, that's incredible. And the reason why SpaceX can do that is because this thing has an insanely high chamber pressure, like 300 bar. Like, it's absolutely disgusting how efficient they have gotten this and just how powerful they've been able to run this engine. Like, just whew, very, very, very compact for that pressure ratio. A first engine, especially with the power of that, will always give you issues. Well, yeah. But at the very least, what you can say is that it is designed off of an iterative development process. So you make something work and you learn from it. You streamline it, make something work, you learn from it, and then you move into production, right? Like, you can see a very clear, very methodical approach to rocket engine performance improvement. Just between the first and second and the second and third. It's very smart. Like, this is true iterative development. It's really cool to see SpaceX move at this pace, right? Because the closest sort of thing that we have to it is the BE4 engine, right? But the BE4 engine is arguably, I mean, it's a beautiful looking engine, don't get me wrong, but it's also very, I guess, quote unquote ugly looking, with all of the engineering connections and all of the purge lines and all of the pressure transducers that they've integrated. This is very much Raptor 1. Like, we haven't seen very much in terms of the overall rocket industry the type of iterative development laid out side by side like that. Like, getting this style of image here, I love it. I think it's fantastic because you can truly see what it is to optimize performance over time, right? Do you have a Discord server? I do have a Discord server. You know, I don't have, you know what? 1 second, stand by. Stand by, I got you. I can do this, chat. I could do this. I trained my whole life. And I hope if this doesn't work, I'm gonna be super sad. Copy link. Please tell me that this works. Please tell me that that link works. I hope that link works, Cosmo. So best of luck to you. If it doesn't work, then I'll have to do some other trickery here. But we'll get it done. Yeah, but even with Raptor 2, they have they are having a bunch of issues. Yeah, don't forget, we're still seeing improvements from even the super heavy Starship side, right? It says invalid. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So then that means I need to go. Thank you for that, by the way, Dragon. Really appreciate that. So I wish because I swear I've set that link to be like never expire, but apparently, right? Apparently, absolutely not. Now I need to go here, and I need to go to server settings. Stand by, chat. Quick one. Invites. Why can't Discord? Discord has like too many things. Has anybody else noticed that? Discord has like way too many things. I don't like it. Does this one work? No, that one is link invalid. Son of a gun! Why is Discord way too much? It also doesn't help that, there we go, invite, copy. Okay, so we're just gonna do this, and then we're gonna go to this, and then now that should work. I'm gonna have to update that command again. Anyways, okay, back to it, chat, back to it. What's up, RJ? How are you doing? How are you doing? We already know there are other blocks of BE4 planned so that the engine will likely slim down as well. Yep, of course. It was also the first time they ever attempted an engine with that amount of thrust. Exactly. Yeah, definitely that link worked. Good. So that is absolutely true. But that was my point, right? Is that this is still very much Raptor 1. They're obviously going to iterate on it. This is Blue Origin's BE4, right? They've only flown it on an operational mission once. Like, this was coming from Vulcan. Vulcan's first test flight was BE4's first operational test. This is of course going to be going on New Glenn and all of these other vehicles. So fantastic. But yeah, very much this is Raptor 1. So we do not get a lot of insight for any company right now that has something like this, where we can see a very clear iterative development process, which is absolutely awesome. Yep, VC1, that's right. And it did work. It worked first time, no problem. But yeah, so going back to it, of course, we've seen SpaceX work a lot on the reliability of Raptors. You know, everything from integrated flight test 1, where they lost like how many Raptors? They lost like 4 on liftoff, and then none of them basically turned back on for super heavy, and yeah, massive problems during IFT4. Just the last IFT, they only lost like 2 engines, right? One shut down early right after liftoff, if I remember correctly, and then one literally did pop, exploded, shrapnel going everywhere on Super Heavy's engine ignition for landing burn. So yeah, but massive improvements overall from like the very first Raptor iteration to Raptor 2. And so now we have Raptor 3. It looks simpler, it's more streamlined. So hopefully the whole mentality is, Chad, is if you have a simpler system, less things to go wrong. But time will of course tell. Time will of course tell. Where is New Glenn development wise? Well, I'll show you. So take this, of course, with a grain of salt, okay? But somewhere on this list of future flights for the launch schedule, we do have a New Glenn demo flight set for September 29th. Now, I don't think that's going to stick. I haven't heard much of any updates. Last we saw, they were doing pad fit checks with their basically their test article, their structural test article, right? But supposedly they want a demo flight by the end of this year. So, you know, that's like the last update we got, which was like September. That's probably, of course, going to slip, but it's supposed to be this year. There are at least 3 more flights of BE4 planned for this year, with possibly 1 or 2 more. That'd be amazing. Yeah, get more time on the BE4 engine. I'm a very big fan of the BE4 engine. Isn't Vulcan going to launch VC2 later this year? VC2 is set to launch here September 16th, yeah. And then we're supposed to have VC3, right? We just saw Tori Bruno on our last part of the Go No Go poll news that Vulcan serial number 3 core stage has been delivered to Cape Canaveral. So yeah, they are looking to do at least 2 more flights this year. Certification here for flight number 2, September 16th, and then ideally a 3rd flight before the end of the year, depending on basically other systems launch readiness, of course. But anyways, chat, very much looking forward to this engine, of course, flying more. This is BE4 from Blue Origin. Very excited for that, but it's fantastic that we're getting more and more images from SpaceX for Raptor 3 in just the short amount of time that it's been sort of provided to the public. So this is, of course, Raptor 1. Oh, they were giving Raptor 1 and Raptor 2 performance metrics, and oh, that's good. So 280 tons of force for Raptor 3. That's 100 tons of force more since Raptor 1. Absolutely crazy. And look how much they've been able to basically reduce mass. They were able to reduce mass by half a ton. That's absolutely crazy. And then by, of course, with all the hardware mass, because they're able to simplify everything, they've actually they've slimmed down the mass by almost 50%. By more than 50%. Absolutely crazy. Are you doing KSP today as well? That is the plan, Smoke. Yes. And then we have 230 tons for Raptor 2. Wow, that was a massive jump just between Raptor 1 and Raptor 2 for the thrust output. 1,600 kilograms all in total. Yeah, wow. Yeah, from Raptor 1 to Raptor 2, it definitely slimmed down. But even look at that. It's a full metric ton lighter Raptor 3 is in comparison to just Raptor 2. That's wild. Okay. That's absolutely wild. He shared improvements, did he? 6 this year. Wait, hold up. Ooh. Oh, from July 11th. Yes. Nice. I do remember seeing this. Yeah, this was Tori Bruno talking about the updates to the infrastructure at Slick 41. Indeed. Yeah, like ULA is ramping up. They're doing good work. SpaceX, of course, is more in the spotlight right now because we've gotten update after update, launch after launch after launch. But yeah, pretty good. So another little bit of space news while we're on the SpaceX train. This came out just a couple days ago. We have some very, very amazing slow-mo footage of a vacuum optimized Raptor engine on the test stand, and boy is it looking good. I have got school tomorrow, so I gotta sleep soon. All right, Cosmo, much love to you. Have a good night, and best of the best at school tomorrow for sure. That's from April, but we just got the slow-mo vid. Oh, that's from April. You're right, that is from April. I was thinking that I just saw this on my feed a couple days ago, and so I was saving it for today. But you're right, this is from April. But anyways, I wanted to show this anyways because it was on my feed for a couple days ago. Raptor engine on the test stand. I really like this video because it shows the shutdown staging for a rocket engine. So again, this is the vacuum optimized version, but just watch this super slow mode during shutdown. Absolutely, I love this footage. SpaceX has been so forthcoming, you know, in comparison to other companies, on being able to show us some really cool stuff. So it's going to be, so this is during shutdown. So as you can see, the entire vehicle starting to ramp down. Basically the turbines are starting to come off of their max RPMs and they're spooling down, which means that the propellants are getting fed into the rocket engine through the injector plate up here at a slower rate. Everything is happening. This is a very large transient dynamic regime that the vehicle is going to be going through. And as you can see, as the vehicle continues to ramp down, we start to get combustion instabilities. Now the vehicle is chugging. This is quite literally is called chugging, not chugging as, you know, we might hear as humans chug a drink or something. Chugging is a phenomenon that occurs, you really don't want it to occur at a steady rate. Chugging is this massive fluctuation that you're going to see here in a second, of the byproducts of the engine basically ramping up and then throttling down, and then ramping up and then throttling down. Oh yeah, see, that's very bad for a rocket engine. And what's also amazing is that you can actually see the shock as it's shutting down move back into the nozzle and back into the combustion chamber. So you see this line right here? This is one shock that's occurring inside of the nozzle. You're getting flow separation on the inside of the nozzle. You can see a second one back here occurring. And right there, you can see it start to move back. It's going forward, backwards as these different shocks happen and carry out through the engine. Not great, Bob. But luckily, this is during shutdown process, and shutdown happens over the course of like half a second. So it's really not bad for the rocket. You just don't want this to happen during a sustained performance period, because during this time, because it's transient, you get a lot of stresses on the nozzle. And this can happen, you know, this can actually be a reason why certain nozzles pop during different flight regimes. But yeah, so this chugging typically occurs when you're throttling down, because as the turbopumps start spooling down, they're feeding the combustion chamber with a less optimized ratio of liquid to oxygen, to where you're not getting combustion, you're actually getting delayed combustion. And so what happens, right, is that as you get delayed combustion, the combustion chamber pressure goes down, which means that the turbopumps are able to feed the combustion chamber with more propellant. Then that causes an explosion, right? And then that increases the combustion chamber, and now the pressure inside the combustion chamber is higher, so the turbopumps can't feed as much propellant, so then pressure drops, and then you get this cycle of high pressure, low pressure, high pressure, low pressure, which then translates to more propellant being fed, less propellant being fed, more propellant being fed, less propellant being fed. And so that happens at a very, very short duration, but very slow oscillations, like, you know, 100 hertz or something like that, 100 times a second. But yeah, very, very cool to actually see this in slow-mo for a vacuum optimized nozzle, because then you can actually see the shocks move into the combustion chamber all the way from outside the nozzle, which is, it's just crazy. Speaking of Raptor VACs, Ship 30 had yet another RVAC swap. Let's hope it doesn't need yet another static fire. That's true. Interesting. Yeah, they do keep throwing those out. That's after we got the slow-mo video of the startup for that Starship, right? But yeah, really, really cool video. Like I said, this is apparently, thank you, Thomas, actually from April 10th, but it just got on my feed and I wanted to show it, so there we go. But anyways, moving right along, like I was saying, this is essentially what happens during this, what's known as chugging for a rocket engine. It's a big cyclical process where you have your chamber pressure, which might be increasing, which changes the injection pressure, which changes the time delay on ignition, which of course then changes the propellant flow rate, which changes the combustion delay time, which, you know, you just get this massive cycle. And as the chamber pressure decreases, it affects these things in a certain way, and then as it increases, it affects it in the opposite way. So you just get this big cyclical process that causes that big undulating effect on as the vehicle shuts down, which is yeah, not great to see if that's actually your like operating point, but during shutdown it's no problem. Yeah, it doesn't like it. It's fine. You know, it'll get used to them, right? You just got to get used to them. All right, moving right along, chat. SpaceX still on our forefront. If you guys have not seen it, Cygnus did in fact launch today after having like a, I don't know, a 40% probability of violation or something like that. Remember, right off the coast of Florida right now is a tropical storm / hurricane Debbie, which is set to make landfall here in the next couple of days. So weather has been deteriorating around Cape Canaveral, and this was supposed to launch this morning, and in fact it did around 9 a.m. Eastern. And we got some really amazing views, I must say. Like, also notice the short boy nozzle. This was also, is this the first flight from a short boy nozzle since the last anomaly from the upper stage? But yeah, so this was kind of a, wasn't this kind of like a return to flight? I mean, I know they've done Starlink, but like a first return to flight for like, I guess, launching commercial payloads. Stubby nozzle, yeah. Stubby nozzle, very stubby. It was, yeah, okay. But yeah, anyways, I'm just gonna let this play forward. We got some great views of the landing because this was a return to launch site landing burn. So it came all the way back to the Cape. Look at that. Vehicle is moving sideways. If you guys remember us doing this in KSP, where we could literally turn the rocket sideways and fly it in back to our landing zone, absolutely amazing. You can actually see it there for a second, just what angle of attack we have. And then it goes from a 1-engine ignition to a 3-engine ignition, back to a 1-engine ignition, all the way down to the ground. It was a good launch, chat. It was definitely a good launch. Yo, what's up, Wiz? How are you? It is a little bit weird looking, isn't it?
Landing confirmed.
A spectacular 335th.
But yeah, so that is what we were able to get to today. But like I said, if you can see this from like a zoomed out view, which I think NASA Spaceflight got a great shot of it, this is literally flying at like an angle like this. Like, it's actually flying back towards the pad, and you can kind of see it based on the aerodynamics. Like, look at this. The bottom grid fin is going through the transonic regime. It's basically having the vapor cone around it on the upper side here. So only on one side are we getting those vapor trails. So this vehicle is moving in sideways, literally flying back towards the pad. It was a great shot. And then you can see during startup here, we have the single engine burn during startup, moving into a 3-engine burn, back into a single engine for landing. I would love to see footage like this from New Glenn as it approaches this barge. Yeah, 100%, definitely. But the only unfortunate thing is I honestly have no idea what to expect from Blue Origin for its flights, mainly because they are so secretive. I don't know what to expect. Like, I would not be surprised if we got zero information, zero, you know, camera views from the barge, just because they, you know, their production value, they're very secretive on their performance. But we'll see. Hopefully, one can dream, right? But that was a great launch from SpaceX, working absolutely perfect all the way through delivery of Cygnus. So we can see here, this is coming from Julia Bergeron. She is a contributor for NASA Spaceflight. Look at that vapor cone, chat. Oh, it's so good. What a great shot of Falcon 9 as it goes through its basically its max Q. It's going supersonic at this point, which is why you have the massive vapor cone. And we actually got a lot of really, really good shots of Falcon 9 during this entire flight. Because we got another one here from Ben Cooper. Ben Cooper, launch photo on X, got this amazing shot of 2 shocks off of the vehicle, and their vapor cone in the atmosphere is creating this rainbow effect, much like a rainbow is just having basically sunlight move through the clouds or any sort of rain droplets and water droplets in the atmosphere. We get that same sort of effect here through shock waves. I absolutely love this photo. And Bravo Alpha Echo coming in with that Twitch Prime subscription on Twitch for 27 Kerbal years of support. Much love to you. Mwah. Thank you, Bravo. Very much appreciated. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. That's such a nice photo, isn't it? Yeah, so again, this is coming from Ben Cooper. If you want to see this on X yourself. But it's so good. Like, you can clearly see technically sort of 3 vapor cones coming off of the vehicle. You can clearly see one right there off of the engines. You can just start to see a very, very small one here off of the top of the landing legs. And then, of course, you can see another one coming off of the top of the booster here where the grid fins are. So multiple shocks coming off the vehicle, multiple vapor cones as it comes back in for a landing. Good shot. And we have some more here from him as well. There you go. So this is slightly different a little bit later in his flight, but seriously, so Chad, what I was saying, look at the angle that this thing is flying. It's hard to see it in the other camera because that camera angle is offset. This camera angle is not. It is literally flying at like a 45-degree entry corridor for the landing zone, and it's even flying at a slight angle of attack as it tries to steer itself towards that landing zone, which is absolutely crazy. And again, you can see on this one a little bit better than the other one, the 3 different shocks, right? So you can clearly see one off of the engines. You can just make a small one off of the landing legs here, and then of course you can see the shock here at the very top of the booster. Also one stemming off of the grid fins. So yeah, Ben Cooper, in my opinion, one photo of the day for the launch from this, but definitely absolutely amazing. And then we of course have John Kraus, absolutely phenomenal photographer as well. John Kraus is basically he's also now the content director of Polaris, of the Polaris Dawn program of Polaris, but he's also just a all-around good dude, spaceflight photographer. Here you can see an absolute killer shot of the vapor cone as it's forming. Like, this is the very beginning of it forming around the fairing of Falcon 9. This is earlier in the process than the one that we saw from Julia in a couple photographs ago. Just moving through the sound barrier right now. Absolutely amazing. And then we also got his view basically straight on from LZ, coming in for a landing. And then last but not least, the actual landing burn as well. So great shots today. Really, really good. I'm really glad it launched even with Debbie off the coast and not looking like it was going to be able to launch today. But we did. We got Cygnus up in the air, and we did in fact get a confirmed drop-off point of Cygnus deployed from the upper stage. So this is also from the live stream from SpaceX. This is the bottom of Cygnus here. And this is the payload attachment fitting. And you can see the folded up solar array from Cygnus. And there you go.
Deploy confirmed.
And there you have it, a successful spacecraft separation.
Yep, we'll get to
Cygnus
that
spacecraft
momentarily.
Is now on its way to the International Space Station, and as mentioned, is expected to arrive about 40 hours from now. And with successful separation, that's going to do it for me here in Hawthorne. Be sure to check SpaceX.com/launches for
yeah, absolutely great launch. SpaceX operated perfectly. So here you can see on the payload attachment fitting, you can basically see this big C-clamp, which uses a frangible bolt connection. That's all basically triggered by this actuator here. The frangible bolt has a very, very small electrical impulse that then basically snaps the bolt that's holding it all into place. And then it's basically just a gigantic C-clamp going around the entire payload attachment fitting that's actually on the Cygnus capsule. So once that releases, it's all held in place by springs, or it's pushed out by springs, held in by these clamps. And once they open, it also has a spring-loaded plate on the inside that just pushes it away. So yeah, everything worked very, very well throughout the flight for SpaceX, and then we will get into our no-go segment here momentarily, where we will cover the anomaly that occurred with the Cygnus spacecraft. Don't worry, it seems like it's fine. They are working the issue, and they have found some workarounds so far. But yeah, Cygnus is not having a good flight for this NG-21. But anyways, moving right along, chat, let's get into Starbase. We have this fantastic photo coming from John Kraus from Starbase as they're stacking the Super Heavy and Starship in a flight light configuration off of the tower on the orbital launch stand. Yeah, this was just from this afternoon. Absolutely great shot. They are working around the clock to get Starbase's second pad up and running, and they are making amazing progress. We can actually go ahead and start looking at said progress right here. This is of course coming from NASA spaceflight. They are moving so fast. That's not today. There are no vehicles on the launch site, but he posted this today. So when was this? Because he posted this at 3:16. I assumed it was from today. So when would this have been from, if they've already taken everything off? There are 0 vehicles at the launch site now. Interesting. I wonder if it shows a previous one. That's from 3 hours ago. From earlier. Oh yeah, Polaris program was doing some flights today. Pretty awesome. From August 3rd. Would this have just been from yesterday then? I don't see anything else from Starbase. Here's one from July 29th. So it was definitely stacked by July 29th. This was flight 4 stack? Oh, interesting. Well, anyways, he posted it today. Pretty great photo. But let's go ahead and look at the Starbase progress from a update from NASA spaceflight here on YouTube. That was just outfitted here a day ago. So if you don't follow NASA spaceflight on YouTube, highly recommend it. They are also another fantastic source of space news information, and they do daily coverages and updates on what's happening at Starbase and at SpaceX's McGregor facility and all that jazz. Lots of different basically permanently live views of Starbase and McGregor. But like I was saying, this is the second pad at Starbase. You can see they're moving very quickly. Already have the first 4 tiers of the launch tower up and integrated at Starbase. Here's the actual basically launch pad 1, if you will, the one that we've seen IFT 1 through 4 launch. But yeah, definitely have quite the updates to go through. Starship 30 and B-12 haven't ever been stacked together. Yep, got it. I'm from Boston, and there's an old Boston song riffing on the MBTA. I'm beginning to wonder if Charlie on the MTA should be redone for Starliner. Maybe. SpaceX is a week behind on stacking the tower per the schedule given to the FAA. The crane was lower today, and they're going to be extending it for the final 3 segments to be stacked. Gotcha. That is a massive crane, though. Absolutely massive. But regardless, they are moving very fast there at the pad. So are they delayed in stacking the tower, or are they delayed in preparing the launch site for basically launch pad 2? Because it seemed like once they got going, like, you know, clearing the field and then grading the field and everything like that, they got launch pad 2's foundation up very fast, and then they've been at a pretty good pace all the way through from what I've seen. But But did they start late, or has the tower stacking just been a little bit longer than they were planning? Has a massive crane though. So yeah, a lot of the development work right now at the pad has been all about getting this next facility up and running at Starbase. They gave a schedule to the FAA for the height of the crane and said this configuration would end on the 27th. Gotcha. Of last month. Ah, interesting, interesting. Okay. So you can see there, those are the hold down points for, that said for booster, right? Yeah, booster forward section. So there's the actual hold down points and where the grid fins stick out. Basically the inner stage, if you will, or the very, very top part. It's actually not the inner stage, but, or like the hot staging ring. But it's that forward dome section. It's looking very, very nice. Mine? There you can see the cargo bay. All right, we don't need to hear that. We don't need to hear those rats with wings chat. Music's a little intense. We're watching Starbase updates, goodness. All of the welding chat. Work on the orbital launch mount refurbishment continues for Flight 5. Oh, so this is the orbital launch mount that IFT4 handled. Looking like they're doing some repairs, welding seams. Module 5 lifted. So this is the new tower that they're lifting. So how many overall segments is it? Do we know, Thomas? How much is the other one? God, that tower is so flippin' tall. It even looks like the tower got a slight upgrade in its design as well, in comparison to the other one that's next door. 6 full and 3 halves. Gotcha. I thought, yeah, I was thinking it was 7. God, what a monster. But yeah, they have been making super good headway on this since they got started. Yep, removing the tanks out. This again is on site number 1. Back to site 2. So they got 2 modules stacked in a matter of a day. Is that what what's the NASA space flights? This is from August 2nd. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, it'll feed both pads. That's right. Yeah, because there's a massive tank farm kind of like in front of near the road of basically the orbital launch pad 1 and tower 1, and that's designed to what they're going to, well, at least what they're saying is it's going to actually feed both tower 2 and orbital launch pad 2 as well as tower 1 and orbital launch pad 2. So 1 tank farm to rule them all, chat. That is the goal. Lots of money helps it go faster. That is true, Naps. That is true. Just need more bodies working on the nuts and bolts, right? It is a good looking ship. I can't wait to see even like future renditions, because remember, they're stretching the overall design of Starship. Starship is going to get stretched. It's going to have its payload doors. They're going to have upgrades to it based off of our IFT4, because, you know, we saw burn through on the heat shields and tiles and everything. A lot of upgrades are going through this. We might not see them on ship 30, or at least all of them on ship 30, but it'll be interesting to see kind of like how Raptor 1, Raptor 2, and Raptor 3 went, as if in the future we can get like, you know, serial number, say like 12 or whatever, and then, you know, ship the last ship that flew, and then like even if like the first production ship would be really crazy. S-32 in the background, never to fly. So sad. Yep, constantly moving equipment back and forth for production and facilities. What's that say? Weight 3,890 pounds. Solid. Like almost 2 tons. Like 1.6 metric tons. Nice. Yep, they're going strong. Do we have a remind me, Thomas, or anyone in chat, what was the what's the current date, if you will, for Starship to actually be able to launch? Starship 5, Integrated Flight Test 5. Like, I know we're waiting on the FAA, but so is it supposed to be end of September? The end of September, ideally, is IFT 5. Art says 6-point lift only is lifted by only 3 points. I didn't catch that, Portable. Nice. Don't tell OSHA, it's fine. End of the month, early next, yeah. So ideally, definitely by the end of September, we should have IFT 5. The chopsticks are back. Upgrades are ongoing for the first catch attempt. Crazy. Oh. Well, isn't that majestic, chat? Is the entire end of this flight just the Hawk? That's awesome. SpaceX doesn't care about OSHA. Their safety on the site is bad. Yeah, so it seems. If it's any indication. Load spreader hooked to module 6. Let me see, what does that look like? Ah, yeah. Interesting. Getting ready for the next stack. But that's it. So like I said, moving very, very, very fast at the launch site. To be fair, they don't care about other regulations too. And also, to be fair, aren't they still contracting out workers, or is this all SpaceX workers? Like, are they still contracting out the workforce, or is like all of these SpaceX technicians now technically? Yeah, 6 is already stacked. It's like 6th module. We now have 3 half stacks to go. Yeah, they're moving insanely fast. Insanely fast. But that's it, chat. Pretty good stuff overall. But like I said, we now have to go through the no-go segment here. First up is, of course, the Cygnus anomaly, chat. You guys have not seen it. Cygnus. Not looking great, chat. Not looking great. So after the successful launch and delivery to its parking orbit from SpaceX on Falcon 9 this morning, Cygnus failed 2 engine burns for orbital insertion. Well, basically for orbital maneuvering. It was already inserted into its parking orbit, but it failed TB1, which was scheduled at 1544, just after stage 2 separation, and then also a second attempt at 1634 was actually aborted due to a pressure sensor in the orbital maneuvering engine. We did get a update from NASA, although they have kind of been not really as forthcoming as NASA. Like, it seems, I don't know what it is, but NASA seems to be like falling off on their PR. Like, I don't know if somebody like retired or whatnot. That's typically like on, you know, par, like really on the schedule for public relations. But it seems like ever since Starliner, the whole PR team for NASA has been like, I don't know what's happening. But anyways, we did get an update finally after several hours after the event, but it doesn't give much information. But it does say Northrop Grumman's Cygnus spacecraft completed the deployment of its 2 solar arrays at 2:21 Eastern after launching at 11:02 a.m. on August 4th. That was this morning. On a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from SpaceX Launch Complex 40 or Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Shortly after launch, the spacecraft missed its first burn, slated for 11:44 a.m. due to a late entry to burn sequencing. Basically, it had a timing issue. Known as Targeted Altitude Burn, or TB1, it was rescheduled for 12:34, basically an hour later. But aborted that maneuver shortly after the engine ignited due to slightly low initial pressure state. There is no indication the engine itself has any problem at this time. Cygnus is at a safe altitude, and Northrop Grumman engineers are working a new burn and trajectory plan. The team aims to achieve the spacecraft's original target time on station at 3:10 a.m. on Tuesday, August 10th. That is also Eastern time. So they're still hoping to be able to arrive at the ISS by the initial target period, but it has definitely kind of been anomalous to date. But yeah, that's kind of the update that we got. Cygnus was successfully deployed off of the upper stage on Falcon 9, and then it basically missed its initial burn due to a timing error, and then it missed its second burn due to some kind of pressure anomaly, which is interesting. NASA is going to claim it's a proprietary information, which they cannot share. Yeah. Yes, indeed. My mom always said, if I have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. Yeah, but that doesn't apply here. Stop. So yeah, very much a no-go on this NG-21. Yeah, the 21st mission, Northrop Grumman mission number 21 for Cygnus. But anyways, chat, let's move on to some slightly hopeful news. NG-21 Cygnus seems to be okay. It's at least in a stable orbit for now. Let's go into some, ideally some hopeful news here, chat, and that is Viper. If you guys don't know, Viper, which was the long-awaited for rover mission to the southern pole of the moon to search for water and other volatiles before basically humans got there. You know, it's like a great scouting mission for future Artemis missions. But anyways, it was canceled. Yeah, it got schnockered by the NASA machine on all of its funding. It's basically like mostly developed. It has a launch date already. It's supposed to launch with Astrobotics on their larger lander, and it got axed. But what might be some good news is NASA is looking for commercial entities to take over the project. And one such team that is looking to potentially take it over is actually Intuitive Machines, believe it or not, which is awesome. But anyways, so this coming here from CNN, this was actually linked by a very prominent member on X who has done a lot with like different Mars environmental development missions as well as lunar development missions. Cannot remember his name off the top of my head right now. But yeah, so looking to save NASA's $500 million water hunting moon rover is the caption. So let's see, a $500 million rover that would be crucial to US lunar ambition sits fully assembled but in a state of limbo, mere steps away from being ready for launch. Known as the Volatiles Investigating Polar Exploration Rover, or Viper, the 948-pound or 930-kilogram vehicle is designed to scour the moon's south pole to locate water ice, a key resource that, if found, could one day be converted to drinking water for astronauts or even rocket fuel. But Viper may not make it off the surface of Earth, citing budgetary concerns. NASA announced last month it was canceling plans to put Viper on the moon, even though the agency has spent years developing the rover and still committed to pay for its ride to space. The move sent shockwaves through the science community. Commercial space companies scrambled to submit proposals to NASA suggesting ways the project could be saved. A petition with more than 4,500 signatures is circulating in Congress asking that Viper be revived, and some lawmakers are expressing concerns or publicly called for a reversal. There's just a general sense of concern over this decision. It doesn't quite make sense, said Jack Curley, director of government relations at the non-profit Planetary Society, which led the petition urging Congress to act for them to cancel it at this point. I think it's turning a lot of heads on the Hill and in the space community writ large. Though not the only NASA-led project designed to hunt for water on the moon before astronauts arrived, Viper was perhaps one of the agency's best shots. While other projects involve satellites remotely gathering data or a stagnant drill, Viper is designed to roam the lunar surface, collecting data about specific resources and digging into the soil where appropriate. At this point, the project's future could unfold in at least 3 ways. Lawmakers could step in and direct NASA to change course. Viper, in which NASA has already invested $450 million, could be stripped and sold for parts. Or a commercial company could snap up the rover and commit some money to save the groundbreaking vehicle. So a corporate savior is being looked for, yes? At the same time NASA announced its abrupt plans to end the Viper program, it also turned to its international partners and the US commercial space industry for help, a common theme at the space agency. NASA asked companies to submit a expressions of interest, or basically a request for information, by August 1. So that was 4 days ago. And at least a dozen have reached out, according to the Planetary Society, which is keeping track. Among those companies is Intuitive Machines, the Houston-based firm that made headlines this year by successfully landing its Nova C spacecraft on the lunar surface, albeit it did tip over, forcing significant disruptions to the historic mission, but it became the first US-made spacecraft to touch down safely on the moon in 5 decades. The company has worked to prepare for the second Nova C mission slated for later this year, and the availability of the Viper spacecraft piqued the company's interest for future projects. The Viper rover is essentially complete, Tim Crane, co-founder and chief technology officer at Intuitive Machines, told CNN, and it has a small amount of testing to go. Under Intuitive Machines' proposal, it would use a new scaled-up version of its Nova C lander called Nova D to take Viper to the moon's surface as soon as late 2026 or mid-2027. To reach that goal, Intuitive Machines will likely have to dip into its own funds, of course. NASA and its commercial partners have already estimated that the rover needs around $100 million of additional investment, mostly from testing and ground support systems, but it's ready to head moon forward. And Crane said from Intuitive Machines that that's a good top-end number. It's kind of like buying a home with some renovations underway. We're going to evaluate those things and decide which ones that we're still going to do. We have to manage costs. Yeah, $100 million in testing. That's a crazy price tag, chat. Like, just for like testing and ground support equipment is, 20% of your budget. That's wild. I mean, I'm not saying that that's like unheard of. I'm just saying like $100 million price tag for testing, and when it's already built and you just need that to then send it. Yeah, crazy. Like, arguably, you could just send it as is without testing it, so long as it meets the other like launch criteria and things like that. Because when a spacecraft goes into basically space qualification testing, you do everything from TVAC, thermal vacuum chamber testing. You basically have to make sure you bake it out so that way no volatiles are emitted from the spacecraft from all the materials that are being used, like plastics and whatnot. You have to, of course, do EMI, EMC testing, or electromagnetic interference and compatibility testing to make sure that communications aren't going to do weird things with the electronics on board and vice versa. There's a lot of testing that goes into it, shock and vibe. But there are certain things that you possibly could just cut or not do so strenuously to, cut the price tag and whatnot. But yeah, $100 million is what NASA says that they still needed in order to basically get it ready for flight, even though it's like completely already built. Let's see. Where was that? Okay, so but Viper is a heavily science-focused spacecraft, so what does a profit-seeking company stand to gain from it? Crane said Viper can gather crucial data that Intuitive Machines and other companies are seeking. John Marshall, the company's communication lead, likened the search for resources on the moon's surface to the California gold rush. It's an apt analogy. They definitely want to find water, because if you can find water, like they said earlier, that'll be future resources for astronauts for water, for creating certain byproducts for propellants for combustion, or you can actually just use water as your combustion system as well. Why? Because you can use electrolysis to basically separate that water into hydrogen and oxygen. So yeah, pretty great stuff. Viper can also send back information about soil composition and other things that are needed for future missions. Yes, indeed. Of course, it's not clear whether intuitive machines will have the opportunity to take over the Viper program. CNN was not able to confirm which other companies or international partners expressed interest to NASA or what those proposals might entail. The uncertainty around Viper's future has also created a troublesome few weeks for the company that had originally been slated to fly the rover to the moon. That is, of course, the Astrobotics company, Astrobotic Technology. Astrobotic made international headlines in January when it reached its first attempt to put a lander on the moon, though its Peregrine spacecraft ultimately abandoned those plans because of a propellant leak. As a result of the hangups, Astrobotics encountered the failure. Oh, well, thank you very much. I got some dinner chat. Thank you. From Rocket Gal. So as a result of the hangups Astrobotic encountered and the failure of its inaugural flight, NASA and Astrobotics decided the company should carry out additional propulsion testing on the Griffin lander, the lander that was slated for Viper. Wow. Indeed. Additional testing, however, pushed Griffin's expected launch date, the Viper's ride to the moon, into late 2025, 2 years later than initially intended. Yeah, dude, that, oh God, I did not think about that. That's such a bad idea. So when you have a system that's basically ready for flight, but then your launch gets delayed 2 years, you still incur all of those costs for operations for the amount of time, right? Because then you have to store it, you have to do checks on it, you have to cycle the batteries. It's not just like, oh, it's too late, it's 2 years delayed, we'll just have no more costs associated with it for those 2 years. No, that's not how that works. So yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah, the Griffin lander, because Astrobotics had problems on their first mission with their propulsion system, they have to carry out additional testing. So their next mission, which was to carry Viper, got delayed by 2 years. Wow, it's crazy how things are all, integrated together, and how like one small thing, well, arguably one small thing, one component sort of thing failing completely can cause a slip of 2 years for subsequent flights, and then an entire $500 million program to get canceled. Yeah, marry that one. Oh wait, indeed. So the company is scrambling to evaluate science instruments and payloads that could replace the Viper on the Astrobotics mission. There's a lot of interest. So anyways, chat, I will go ahead and post this if you guys want to read the rest of it. We got through most of the article. But the good news is, if there's any hope to be had, is that Viper could be saved. NASA is looking for commercial entities and other international organizations to pick up the bill. The Viper lander is like actually completely built and ready to go. It just has to go through its qualification testing, which is no small feat, right? As we were talking about earlier, there's numerous testings that you have to do. It could take a very long time to do those testings as well, like over a year, depending on how strenuous and how fast you can move. Like, testing is no small order. So the vehicle is built, but it still has quite a ways to go in order to actually become flight ready. But there are, of course, things that any commercial company can do to try and curb some of those costs and curb that timeline. But yeah, a lot, of course, in the pipe, and nothing for sure. I remember the Galileo antenna fiasco. Yeah, indeed. Might these cascading effects be why people outside NASA don't follow the rationale to budget cuts? I'd guess insiders have a better sense of what will likely go over budget. Yeah, 100%, Nick. 100%. Like, it's truly interesting, all of the repercussions. I think the best example of repercussions within the spaceflight architecture machine, if you will, is the decision to cancel Constellation. Now, hear me out, because we talked about this a lot, and I know this is kind of like my go-to example for a lot of the problems with the whole Artemis program. But Constellation was canceled because it was deemed to be too expensive for the budgets that NASA was getting at the time. So they canceled that, but they kept Orion in development. And then when SLS came around, because Orion was basically kept in development and was already basically a prototype, Orion was a drag and drop placement into the Artemis architecture. Well, what basically was the asteroid redirect mission, which gave us SLS, and then into what is now Artemis, right? So keeping Orion, that was originally designed for Ares 5, a much larger lifter than even SLS, which was supposed to also be strapped to the Altair lunar lander. Altair was that massive lunar lander that Lockheed Martin was basically heading up as part of the Constellation program. Altair was sized to be the main propulsion element for low lunar orbit insertion of Orion and the lander, a fully integrated architecture. Altair was scrapped. We still got Orion. SLS is smaller. Orion is too big for SLS to get into a low lunar orbit. That's why we got Gateway. Like, seriously, when one small thing happens, arguably Constellation's cancellation was not a small thing, but the small decision of keeping Orion and having a smaller lifter has completely shifted the entire future spaceflight policy, and, you know, is causing all these basically unrelated problems also are happening, like the HLS selection leading into something that Gateway can't manage, into Gateway being thrust off of SLS onto Falcon 9, and then that being overweight. Like, just absolutely wild, you know? Absolutely crazy. Ares 1? No, for Lunar, Ares 5. Ares 1 was the single stick rocket. Cascading failures, you mean? Yes, Dead. 100%. Cascading failures. I have an article written about cascading failures, and yeah, they... It's bad, okay? Yeah, nothing, yeah, it's almost like things are all interconnected, and one small decision point has a cascading effect, right? Anyways, that just about does it for this bit of our first Go No Go poll space news segment. The last thing I will leave you with, your chat, is this: our cursed rocket photo of today. Oh yeah, so this is this is coming from Tim and Enon on X. This was from a couple days ago. It is a morph between the from a, like, what looks to be like a Boeing 747 or something, and Starliner. Yep. First rocket of the day. That's what we're going to end on as part of our no-go news. Curiosity might be another good example of where a tiny requirement had a huge budget impact. They couldn't get the titanium dry lube motors to work, and it delayed the project years indeed. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like this only because it reminds me of the space shuttle, but also I hate it because what is this? It's a Boeing 747 Starship. It almost looks like the right nose and shape and everything. Just, ugh. Starting from here and now, what would be a saner Artemis program? Saner? I mean, I think, honestly, the biggest change that needs to happen is with the NASA mentality. Not necessarily the mentality, maybe, but, like, its organizational structure. As I was saying earlier, Captain Failure, it very much seems like NASA is a whole bunch of different small businesses all competing within the same space. Like, all the different science centers and all of the different engineering centers, right, are basically competing for the same money. And when money is tight, you just get all of these you know, competing entities, all of these different departments, even within the same research centers and engineering centers, all fighting for the same amount of money, so things get scrapped like instantly. As soon as you get a champion for one department, something else gets scrapped. And we keep seeing that over and over and over and over again. So I was saying, I honestly think that one of the quickest things to that needs to change is NASA needs to be run more like a small business, or like more like a business in general, where everything needs to be unified. We have to have a unifying vision. Like, that's what the whole Space Mission Directorate, the SMD, is supposed to be. But it just doesn't seem to actually be unifying all the centers and all of NASA like it should be. I think commercialization needs to start, not phase out commercialization. Commercialization is great. But we can't keep looking to commercial entities to like solve all of our problems, because then, as we see with NASA Gateway and Falcon 9 SpaceX, that just creates more problems. Like, if we're going to do that, we need to scrap the architecture and have a unified architecture that's built around commercialized entities. You see what I mean? Because basically NASA had this big idea for Artemis, which was, you know, SLS. It was going to have Gateway. It was supposed to have Orion. We were supposed to have an in-house integrated lunar architecture, but then that got commercialized, and now we have Starship. But now Starship being a completely separate system, it's no longer an integrated architecture. It's not an integrated architecture. Artemis is not an integrated architecture. Like, when you have SpaceX being the HLS, a completely independently developed commercial entity that's now supposed to work with all of these other things as an independent system. As we see with Gateway, Starship is too big for its station keeping. It's just those sorts of things. Like, there's no unifying vision, and we're trying to fit like square pegs through a round hole, and it's just not working. It's just not working at all. No overriding vision. Yeah, no overriding vision, and still trying to fit too many things together. Like, we had a plan, right? The plan was Constellation. Okay, we don't get Constellation. Well, let's keep certain things from Constellation. Oh, well, one of the most important pieces from Constellation, the lunar lander, let's shell it out to some commercial entity without giving NASA, without basically giving any sort of definitive design, right? Because under Apollo, that is an integrated architecture. NASA designed the entire system and then basically pulled in commercial entities to then develop it. Like, that's what it should have been. But no, instead we got NASA just saying, hey, here's the requirements, which are, you know, vague enough that something like HLS Starship can fit into, and then we select that. Like, just unbelievable. I'm sorry that, you know, maybe a little spicy there, but yeah, a little too much. But that's my rant. I'll say it like that. That's my rant. And commercial entities will eventually prioritize profits over people. I personally wouldn't go that far, but I will agree that commercial entities are, of course, they have different goals and different rules than what a government organization has, right? Like, I don't understand why all these people say, like, oh, you know, just cancel SLS, Starship will be here, you know, in a matter of, well, I have no idea, a matter of years. Which is already going to be too late for Artemis's current timeline. You know, everyone says, you know, cancel SLS for Starship. Well, you know, like, what if, God forbid, SpaceX goes bankrupt, right? Like, something horrible happens, which can be, and they go bankrupt. Okay, so where is NASA now? Like, you can't do that. Like, I don't care how, like, great the company appears to be. Commercial enterprises are under a whole different rule set than any sort of government agency. So you just can't do that. What's up? How are you doing? All right, chat. What do you guys say we kick things off and get into some Kerbal Space Program? I think that's what we're going to do. So that was our go, no go poll. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Python and wind tunnel mod. Yeah, we're gonna be checking out the wind tunnel mod today, chat. That's what we're gonna do. All right. There we go. Update YouTube, and boom. All right, and in the meantime, I'm gonna go hide my camera because I'm gonna eat this very delicious smelling dinner that Rocky Gal put together. So chat amongst yourselves, chat, and we'll be back. And the redemption of the meme tax. That's right, chat, pay your taxes. What's on the menu? I have some ground turkey shawarma lettuce wraps. So it's like ground turkey, some almonds, some ranch dressing, tomatoes, and a slaw with onions. Pretty good. How's it loading that fast? Was it? I'm not sure. I mean, I have a pretty good computer, but also I don't run like many mods. So if you're running mods, I don't really run that many. All right, I'm gonna finish this meal real quick and we'll get back into it. I certainly like the B29, absolutely. Oh, now we're talking sleazy. Starship? That'd be a heck of a build, sure. I'd love to see what this wind tunnel mod would show for Starship. That'd be pretty wild. All right, let's get off of all this. Get back so you can see my beautiful face. Ba-blam! All right. So let's see what this wind tunnel mod is all about, shall we, chat? I went ahead and loaded up a pretty simple vehicle that we've used in our save previously. It's basically just a 3-engine, pretty powerful little guy, mainly used for research at high altitudes. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can figure out with wind tunnel, not waterfall, with wind tunnel. Still waiting for the beautiful face. I hate you, Element. I hate you. Possible expendable Falcon launch coming up for the Arctic Satellite Broadband mission launch. That's going to be expendable? Okay, for going polar? Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So immediately off the bat, I love this mod. So if you guys don't know, this is Kerbal Wind Tunnel. You can download it off of GitHub or CCAN if you use the mod management tool. And essentially it calculates using a very simple calculation process, fairly simple I should say, way to see all of the different dynamics of your vehicle. And this is essentially what you would do for developing a real-life aircraft, right? You would look at basically defining what's known as the flight envelope, or basically the regime that your overall vehicle could actually fly at for different altitudes and velocities. Oh, that's nice. Okay, and I think what we're going to do is just spend a little bit of time here running through it all and learning how, basically doing a guide or a run through on how you can use this to develop a vehicle. I think that's probably going to be the best course of action here. What's up, PC Tech? How are you? Per hazard areas? Gotcha. I'll leave the trolling for EJ. All right, so first things off the bat, let's see what we got. So we have our flight envelope, all the way up to 14,000 meters altitude at 550-ish meters per second. Interesting. So this is plotting altitude and speed versus excess thrust. So immediately off the bat, what you can see here as your flight envelope is basically where your vehicle can fly. This is it. Your vehicle, at least statically, without any other inputs or any other conditions, this is the only basically places or flight conditions that your vehicle can fly. So we can see right off the bat, our absolute stall condition is going to be around 29 meters per second. But in order to achieve that stall condition right there, we have to be pitched up at a 40-degree angle of attack. So typically speaking, you don't want to do that. That means you can achieve with this vehicle, roughly speaking, a 29 meter per second velocity, but only if you're pitched up like this. That's crazy, but that's awesome. So that means that right off the bat, you can kind of get a very clear understanding of what your stall speed's going to be, because you probably want to like land and generally fly somewhere between like a 5-degree angle of attack. So kind of like right around here, if we wanted to do something that would be less than a 5-degree angle of attack, we would probably want to do a landing somewhere around 60 meters per second, which I think is on par, right? Because 60 meters per second is something like, I don't know, like 110 knots, if I'm not mistaken, which is kind of on par with certain aircraft. So yeah, that actually looks pretty good. You can also see for every altitude and velocity what you can actually fly at. So let's see, excess thrust. So basically at the very, very tall point here, excess thrust, by the way, is basically how much thrust your engines output with respect to how much thrust you need to maintain steady level flight. So essentially when we get to excess thrust of basically 0, that is the absolute maximum altitude at that velocity that we can fly at. Basically because our engines are going to start declining on the thrust that it can output versus what we need to maintain flight. But yeah, for a maximum ceiling of like 13,000 meters is actually pretty crazy. That's actually really good. But also, let's see, but also to maintain that, we have to have a angle of attack of 11 degrees. So if we wanted to maintain steady level flight, we're going to be pitched up by 11 degrees and moving forward at 0 degrees, right? So that, you know, isn't necessarily the most optimal flight condition. Let's see here. We can also probably do lift to drag ratio. There we go. So when you look at your flight envelope and you plot your lift to drag ratio, you can basically see where your aircraft's ideal cruising condition is, basically where its maximum lift to drag ratio is for a given altitude. So for example, if we were at 2,000 meters, our maximum lift to drag ratio looks to be around 5.69 giggity, which means that if we're flying at 2,000 meters, we would want to fly at 70 meters per second for our cruising condition, because that's our maximum lift to drag ratio, which basically means we are producing the maximum amount of lift at that condition. So you're basically, you know, you're not expending any additional velocity. We can of course move off of that if we wanted to. But let's say we wanted to be at 10,000 meters. At 10,000 meters, 3.9 is our maximum lift to drag ratio. And to meet that point, we have to fly at 133 meters per second at an angle of attack of 6.88. That's actually pretty good. I mean, for 10,000 meters, that's actually really not bad. It looks like with this graph though, if we wanted to maintain a pretty high lift to drag so our vehicle isn't like, you know, using most of its force just trying to maintain its zero heading, then a lift to drag ratio of 4.4 seems to be mostly the highest, 4.1 maybe. So level flights at 5.3 degrees, angle of attack at 118 meters per second. So generally speaking, we can see that this vehicle really likes to fly somewhere between like 90 and like 150 meters per second. That's actually really cool. So if I wanted to make my landing speed under 40 meters per second, how would I change things to make that happen? Usually the easiest way to do that, Kings of Beast, is you need more wing area. If not more wing area, then what you could do to kind of fake it a little bit is you can actually put within your wing what's known as an angle of incidence. And essentially what that means is you're going to take your wing and you're going to twist it. And you're going to twist it in a way that it would naturally want to nose the airplane up, because basically that now allows you to fly slower at a reduced input from your control surfaces. Because remember, as you're approaching stall, in order to maintain that high angle of attack, you're going to be inputting a lot more of your control authority. So if you want to maintain that, basically, if you want to maintain that angle of attack for that flight condition, you can always do an angle of incidence, so that way your wing naturally wants to give you a pitching up moment, which then reduces the amount of pitch authority you need in your system, right? So that's one way to do it. Another one is by balancing your craft. So again, if we came here and looked at our lift, so there you go. If we looked at our lift indicator and our mass indicator, you can see that our lift is pretty far back from our center of mass, right? So if we really wanted to improve our stability characteristics as well, we actually might want to do something more like that. But you have to be careful in doing that, right? Because you also have to understand that as you are burning fuel, your entire mass is shifting. So you need to make sure that you're not burning so much fuel that you're then going to become unstable. And an unstable aircraft looks like this, where your lift is actually in front of your center of mass. Why? Because things like to fly center of mass first. So essentially what that is saying here is that center of mass is now backwards, so the vehicle's going to want to fly backwards. So it's unstable for flying this direction, right? With the nose going forward. So that's another way to do it, because if you can balance this really well, then and get it where it's stable, but just stable, then that means that you can fly at different conditions, usually with a smaller angle of attack, and usually that means that your stall speed is delayed. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. So just to kind of recap, definitely first and foremost, increase your lift area. So you need more wing area if you want to have a lower stall speed, right? But another one could be, if you don't want to necessarily do that, balance your pitch authority by putting an angle of incidence on your wing, on your control surface wings. And then finally, basically being able to move where your center of lift actually ends up being, right? A couple of ways to do it. Let's not save and let's bring it back out. Let's see. I think we had it x-axis. Let's only go up to like 550. Yeah, there we go. And then for the y-axis, let's only go up to say 14,000. There we go. Okay, so that's like a true flight envelope right there, right? All right, let's see what else we have. So we have our lift to drag ratio. We have our excess thrust, right? We already showed that. This is basically this is the limit that you can fly this aircraft based on its thrust output. We have our pitch input. Ah, there you go, chat. So pitch input will also show you kind of like where your stall speed is, because essentially once you get to pitch input of 1, that's 100% of your control authority input just to maintain that your nose up, right? Just to maintain that condition, that steady level condition, you're putting in 100% of your control authority. So that's basically not going to be possible, right? Because you can't put more than 100%. So basically you want to have your stall speed where you don't have to actually input 100% just to maintain it. So like stall speed, we could actually call it somewhere like here. Well, let's go down here. So a pitch input of 30% would be 83 meters per second. That seems like maybe a little bit high, but it doesn't go too far up, maybe no more than 50%. And there we go, speed of 60 meters per second. That's what I was saying earlier. That's like 110 knots or something like that, which seems definitely doable. So that's pretty good. So yeah, excess thrust and pitch input seem good. We can also see our drag force. Yeah, that seems pretty uniform. Let's see, any other good bits? Fuel economy, maximum lift, don't really care about that. You can see a thrust curve. Oh, nice. I bet you could see that under velocity curves as well, because your thrust is going to change with these engines, especially because they're air-breathing, non-supersonic, non-afterburning engines. You're going to see them actually lose thrust as you increase your velocity, as you can see here. It's actually pretty cool. Okay, let's look at our angle of attack curves. What is the connection from landing speed and stall speed? There is a rule of thumb, King of Beasts. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's essentially stall speed plus like a 20% margin or something like that. So if like your stall speed, right, like your absolute stall speed is somewhere on the order of like 48 meters per second, add say like 20% of that, and that's a pretty good landing speed. So yeah, if we said our stall speed, roughly speaking, is around 50 meters per second, then, you know, 10% is 5, 20% is 10, so then our landing speed should be roughly around 60 meters per second. But I don't know if it's actually 20% of a margin or if it's like 10%. Does any pilots in chat? What's the kind of rule of thumb? There is kind of like a rule of thumb. But you also look at it in terms of your level flight angle of attack. Typically when landing, you don't want your airliner, for example, to land at say more than like a 5-degree angle of attack. So like this is saying at 52, we're at a 5.39 degree angle of attack. So something better would be around a 4.4, and that's at 60 meters per second. Just, it so happens to be with this aircraft. plus 30. So it's stall speed plus 30. Is that knots? Or is that 30%? Is that 30%, 30 knots, 30 meters per second? Plus 30%, got it. So it's 30% margin. So then that would be, if our stall speed, if we chose our stall speed to be around, somewhere around here, let's just call it 50, right? Because that's when our angle of attack really starts to kind of get away from us. And we were to add, say, 50, so that's 15. So our landing speed should be 65, right? And that seems to be pretty good, right? 3.7 degree angle of attack required for that. I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah. So that's how you can do it, King. All right, so let's see what other interesting stuff we have here. So let's say we wanted to go to 8,000 meters as our cruising velocity. And let's say our cruising velocity is around our, let's actually look at our maximum lift to drag ratio at that altitude. So maximum lift to drag is going to happen somewhere right about there. So at 8,000 meters, and we want to get to 120 meters per second. Let's apply that. And then let's look at a fuel optimal path. Okay, that's a little aggressive. But basically what fuel optimal path should be is, you know, from takeoff, what sort of trajectory you need to fly in order to get up to your cruising altitude in a fuel optimal way. There's also the time optimal way, which looks pretty similar. So it's basically how fast at what altitude you need to go, and also at what angle of attack, or at what climb rate, I should say, in order to achieve your cruising altitude at the fuel optimal or time optimal manner. So if we were to take off, we would want to fly basically right after takeoff at 64 meters. We would want to climb at 16 meters per second. And you can see kind of like overall how this goes. 11 seconds into flight, we should be at 165 meters per second. Climb angle of 17 degrees. And so we would maintain 17 degrees here. And then it really skyrockets. 40 degree angle for climb? No way. That's a little excessive, but fair enough. But what's interesting, right, is that you can follow this for a certain point, and then you can at least see that this is going to be your absolute best case scenario. And generally speaking, you can never fly your absolute best case scenario, because that would mean that you would have to climb vertically, right, in order to truly be fuel optimal / time optimal. But you can kind of see here on a curve that, like, say, hey, okay, right after takeoff, I really want to try and climb at least a 10 degree and hold that there and maintain no more than 220 meters per second. Yeah, see that? We want to maintain no more than 220 meters per second velocity. So that's actually pretty good. And so you can see, once we hit basically at least 1,000 meters in altitude, we should try and maintain basically 220 meters per second. Not bad. That's pretty good. And that should keep us in a mostly fuel optimal manner all the way up to our altitude for cruise. So I like that. It's pretty neat. Okay, let's look at our angle of attack curves. So angle of attack, these curves are going to show our different variables related to the angle of attack. And so this can also be used to kind of back up your assessment of the flight envelope, because you can kind of see some of the same information, but in a different manner. Can this show reentry heating? I don't believe so. No, it cannot show reentry heating. Let's see here. But you can kind of see, you might be able to deduce some of it for a different flight condition. As you can see, heat flux, which is basically based on the design of your vehicle, the forebody, basically the area of your vehicle with respect to velocity. So you can see like a velocity curve. Not easily. You'd have to calculate it yourself, and it's not coming to me at the moment on how you'd be able to do that reliably. Okay, so our angle of attack curves, we have our lift force. We can see our lift course, our lift coefficient is pretty much the same on both sides. So we have a pretty symmetric aircraft in terms of our lift generation, so that's good. Drag should be pretty much the same as well. You can see at 0 degrees angle of attack, we have basically a minimum on our drag force, so that's good. That you definitely want to see that, chat, that at 0 degrees angle of attack, we are the most aerodynamic that we can be. But we can also see that, typically speaking, this aircraft, as we saw before, likes to fly at roughly like a 3-degree angle of attack during cruise conditions. So we can see how much drag we're going to be creating there. And there should be a lift to drag ratio. Yes, there is. Lift to drag ratio. So if we're flying at, say, the angle of attack of 3.25, we're actually going to be maximizing our lift to drag ratio. Oh, that's actually excellent. So yeah, from this curve here, you can see on both bounds, both on the nose down, basically negative angle of attack, right? And the positive angle of attack, where your kind of like cruise condition is. So our cruise condition that maximizes our lift to drag ratio is going to be roughly at 3.49 degrees at 120 meters per second at basically 8,000 altitude. And it looks like you can change that. That's actually really good. That was almost exactly what we were saying over here, right? That should align, roughly speaking, if we go to 8,000 meters, we were saying like 4.4. Right about there, right? Yeah, so that actually aligns pretty well with what we were with what we were saying. Wait, does it keep it going back? No, it's not. Son of a gun. I was hoping it would. That you could go back and forth between the plots and keep the same point. But that's good. So we're maximizing our lift to drag ratio. So this should basically be our cruising condition at an altitude of 8,020 and a speed of 115 meters per second. We should be flying at a angle of attack of 3.49. So this is basically your trim setting, chat. This right here, to maximize lift to drag ratio at this altitude, at your cruising speed, this is what you should trim your this is what you should trim your aircraft to. 3 degrees angle of attack. So that's pretty good. Let's see, what other good stuff do we have? Ooh, pitching torque. For pitching torque, this is a very important plot, chat, because this shows basically your static stability of your aircraft for both wet and dry mass. So wet is green, yellow is dry. So you want a negative slope, meaning going from left to right, it's descending. This indicates a stable aircraft. If you see your pitching torque graph going the opposite direction, meaning going up, and a slope from left to right increasing, you're unstable, meaning that your vehicle is going to want to fly backwards. And also keep a note, the more negative your slope is, meaning the steeper the line is, the more stable your aircraft. So as you can see, when we are dry, when we are basically empty of fuel, we are more stable than we are when we are full of fuel. Why? Mainly because when we empty our fuel, I think our mass of our aircraft shifts forward away from our center of lift, meaning that our center of lift has more stabilizing force than otherwise. So that's pretty good. Now we can probably use this also to our advantage. Actually, let's see. Are we stable through all flight regimes? Like if we go from -90 to +90. Aha! See, now this is interesting. So you can also see at what angle of attack your vehicle is going to flip out of control. So basically, we need to make sure that when we fly this aircraft, we are never surpassing 31 degrees angle of attack. Now, I kind of hope that for the most part, we never do, unless we're doing some aerobatic stunts and whatnot. But just trying to maintain steady level flight with like a 31 degree angle of attack, you're going to want to flip over and basically start flying lawn dart right into the ground. Glider needs this? Yes, very true. And also we can see the same. So this is at 31.20. Also right here on the opposite side at basically -31 degree angle of attack as well, we start getting into an unstable flight condition. So yeah, we want to make sure that we never go above an angle of attack of say 36 or 31 degrees. Is basically where we're going to start flipping out of control and being in a very bad place. Isn't the tail a bit short? Yeah, probably. How do you increase your safe angles of attack? That is a good question. Let's see. So this is pitching torque. So to increase this, you need your vehicle to basically be more stable. So let's see what happens if we can actually make our vehicle more stable. And so what that means is we actually want our lift vector to be farther back, right? So this means that it's going to have a harder time flying because we're going to need now more control authority to get the nose up because our center of mass is further from our center of lift. But with our center of lift being further back and lift being a stabilizing force here when it's behind the center of mass, let's see what that does to our calculations. Let's go ahead and now see negative 90, positive 90. Let's see what that actually does. It changed it a very small amount. A very, very small amount. So yeah, for pitching torque, I think you need more wing area as well, right? Because pitching torque is basically how much torque is your lifting surfaces creating to counterbalance the other aerodynamics acting on your vehicle, acting as a stabilizing force. So we would probably also need, like, what happens if we add like another small wing segment? Yeah, great question. Let's see. So if we take some small wing segments and put them in 2x symmetry here, so now we have more lifting surface to create more pitching torque. Let's see if that stabilizes. So did that change it? Or nah? A little bit. We are updating it, right? It's changing it ever so slightly. So what would have the most effect here? So how many canards do we need? Yeah, canards could definitely do it. Let's actually see that as well. Although that'll technically make us more unstable. But yeah, I do want to see like what happens if we put some canards on here. Because technically this makes us unstable because we're putting a lift vector further forward, but we're also canards typically have a higher angle of attack where they can maintain control versus a steady wing, a normal wing. Let's see what that does. As you can see, the slopes got a little less steep, but I wonder if that kept the onslaught of of flipping out of control. Again, very small amount, but not by much. Interesting. Okay, let's see. Let's do some angle of incidence here as well. That definitely changed the curve, didn't it, chat? That did in fact make it... I made it better on the pitch up, because now we have more torque, more pitching torque available to us on the pitching up moment, but it actually moved our negative angle of attack stability. It shifted our entire thing to the left. So that's actually pretty interesting. Do you see that, King of Beasts? So by adding basically more torque capabilities with our control surfaces, we were able to improve our pitching torque available there. So what if we add more control surface? Maybe that's the key. So even if it's just a little bit here, actually, you know what? Let's go big. I want to see if this really does affect it. Where's the big one? S Elevon 3. Where's the big S Elevon? Oh, I don't have them unlocked yet. Okay. That's right. We're in career mode right now. So these are pretty big control surfaces. Oh, you know what? Also, perhaps moving them back, because that would also give them a larger torque, might also work. All right, let's see. Updates. Negative 90, positive 90. Apply. Yep, so that did move it even further. And so, oops. I don't know what I just did, but whatever. And now what happens if we move this back? Nope, that didn't really change much. Interesting. So it changes a little bit. And what if we just add another set of wings back here? So if we did something like that, really getting crazy. Oh, it's not shifting it anymore. I'm wondering if it's actually updating. Because that's saying with our, oh, wet and dry mass. Wait, what about pitching input? Aha. Pitching input. Ah, I see. So it's based on our wet and dry mass torque. So to then change it, does that mean that we need like more wet or less wet, or more mass or less mass? Like what happens if we did this? Just shove a couple big tanks up there. So that's 31, 31. And we put them really far forward. Well, that definitely changed that curve a little bit. Nope, 31.4, a little bit different, 31.5. I don't know, interesting. I'm not sure if it's updating as much. Hey, what's up, Boaz? How are you doing? Or Boaz? How are you doing? How are you seeing it is unstable? How am I seeing it as unstable? Whenever you have a slope going up from left to right, that's an unstable regime. If you ever have your slope negative, meaning from left to right, you're decreasing, that's stable. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, you're getting diminishing returns and whatnot. You're basically getting to the limitations of what the vehicle can actually do. Let's see what a shuttle looks like. Because we have this shuttle. And let me tell you what, this shuttle is really pretty stable in flight. At really, really high. So let's actually first calculate. Yep. Excess thrust 0 because we have none. Pitch input. Ah. And that's at 8,120. Wait. No. I refuse to believe that this is correct. To maintain, well, you know, I mean, actually, Chad, I think this is correct because this is for steady level flight. This is for steady level flight, meaning that without any control input, can this vehicle maintain steady level flight? The answer is no, it cannot. That's what this is showing. We either need 100% pitch or 100% control input in either direction to maintain our steady level flight. That's essentially what it's telling us. Like, this vehicle cannot maintain a steady level flight. Yep, understood. Understood. Let's see, what would be its level flight angle of attack? Okay, so we can definitely clearly see its stall speed right here. What's its stall speed? 85 meters per second. Yeah, that seems about right. We could probably get it a little bit more. Because remember, this is a shuttle. It's a lifting body, and it flies like a brick. So realistically, its stall speed is actually going to probably be more like 20 degrees, maybe 10 degrees. 80 meters per second. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. Let's see. Angle of attack curves. So pitching torque, very stable. Let's see for what angles of attack it is stable for. Nice, actually. So for 36 degrees angle of attack. Or no, more than that even. 44 degrees angle of attack. So that's really good. That's fantastic, because this thing flies like nicely at 10 degrees angle of attack, meaning that we're basically steady level flight, but our velocity vector is pointing down 10 degrees, right? Because angle of attack is the angle between our velocity vector and basically where our nose is pointing. So yeah, at 44 degrees angle of attack, we are stable at 376 altitude. What happens if we're at like 27,000 meters and moving at say 1900 meters per second? And then negative 90, positive 90. Oh, that's actually amazing. And makes a lot of sense, chat. Yeah, this vehicle, no matter what I do, it will not flip over when it's going through entry. When it's going through re-entry. That means that this vehicle is stable, like actually stable, through all flight regimes that it goes through. That's pretty cool. And we've actually seen that in flying this. Like, it is very hard to pick this thing's nose up when you're going hypersonic. Like, it flies great, but it's just, it definitely flies like a brick. An actual lawn dart, yeah, essentially. Okay, that's good. What about our lift to drag ratio at that altitude? So we basically have to fly at an 18-degree angle of attack to get our maximum cruise. Unflippable, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. It's basically unflippable. So here we can also see at that velocity, at that altitude, that we should actually be flying with our nose up at 18 degrees if we want to maximize our cruise and maintain steady level flight. Okay. But look at this, chat. In order to do that, we actually have to use 100% of our pitch authority. Oh, so that's not even achievable. Ah, that's not even achievable. Hence why our flight envelope curve doesn't ever have us in steady level flight. Look at that. We're actually now... Oh, that's actually really interesting. Yeah, we have to use 100% of our pitch authority in order to maintain steady level flight at that altitude and velocity. Well, that's neat, chat. Can you tell how fast it will slow down in entry to know where to aim to make the runway? That you could use from the drag force. So how you would kind of have to do that is fudge it a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to stick to this certain flight condition, right? And you basically have waypoints that you would choose and say, okay, so at 27, well, let's go higher, right? So at, say, 30,000 and say 2200, if that's our goal, then if we wanted a certain drag force, and this actually gives us a drag coefficient. So a drag coefficient can be used in to calculate the total drag force on the vehicle, right? Because that's going to be 1/2 rho being the atmospheric density at that altitude, times the velocity squared times the coefficient of drag times the area of your vehicle. And so that should give you the total drag force. And then force equals mass times acceleration, right? You can then calculate and solve for your deceleration, basically taking that drag force and dividing by the mass that you expect to re-enter at. So yes, you can do it, but again, you'd have to calculate it, and it would only be for a specific design point. You would have to calculate then multiple design points to kind of give you like, okay, you basically create like a map or a matrix of like saying, okay, I'm at 30,000 meters, I'm actually flying at 2,300. Well, based on that, I need to, you know, I should have this much force, and then that means that I'm going to be landing here, that sort of thing. So would you want to increase pitch authority to maximize that? Yeah, if we wanted to, we could increase pitch authority. Honestly, it flies pretty great in the lower atmosphere. It's just, yeah, without RCS control, we cannot get our nose very far off of our velocity vector. And remember, this thing flies nominally around 11 degrees angle of attack. So yeah, touchdown at 80 meters per second, definitely not unheard of for a shuttle. That's actually even a little slow for a shuttle. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, yeah, this all makes sense. I'm actually really happy to see this. Like, based off of flying it, I can tell you, like, yeah, I understand that when we get really low, near sea level, we're flying typically at a 10-degree angle of attack, and that gets us very, very slow. But we still have a pretty high relative velocity on touchdown. Ah, that's actually really cool. And typically, when we come off of entry, we're typically flying somewhere around here at like 140 meters per second at 5,000 meters. That's with a 10-degree angle of attack. There you go. That's 100% on point after flying it before. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to see. So yeah, our lift to drag ratio, we can never achieve a good lift to drag ratio because we need more pitch input. Interesting. But we're stable through all flight conditions, so that's really interesting. And then what about velocity curves? So velocity here. So what are we actually looking at? Level angle of attack. Okay. But this is for 24,000. 24,000, we're typically going like, you know, like 1,500, 1,800 meters per second. So level angle of attack to maintain that is pretty low. So that's good. That means we should be able to get that. But then let's say we want to drop it to like runway approach, right? Runway approach configuration. And so typically around the runway, we're going maybe 110 at 500 meters. So we can see that my angle of attack for flight is 8.2 degrees. And that's pretty much on point. And you can also see here that stall is very much like, yeah, 60 meters per second. We're pitching up at 16 degrees just to maintain steady level flight. So if we actually wanted to land, say, a little bit steeper, like say 7 degrees, we need to be landing at 125 meters per second. That's funny. But we, of course, can't do that. So we'll probably land more of at a 10-degree angle of attack at like 90. Yeah. That's awesome. I love this thing. We can see our maximum lift at 70 meters per second, but at an angle of attack of 13 degrees. And so then we lose our lift right after that. So that's basically your stall point, like 100% your stall point. Like if you go below, if you're on the far side here at 55 meters per second, you're stalling. See that crash on the lift to drag ratio? Oh yeah, you can definitely see it on the lift slope as well. Thrust available we don't have. Drag force looks good. Max lift, yeah. So if you wanted to land at max lift condition, 105 meters per second, which is how much in knots? 105 meters per second to knots. 204. That's about what the shuttle touched down at, by the way. The shuttle touched down between 190 and 220 knots. Like, I think back wheels were typically around like 215 knots, and then the front wheels touched down around like 180 knots, something like that. So yeah, 100 meters per second is not unheard of for a shuttle to land at. And then pitch input. Pitch input versus airspeed. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'm wondering if it's like I don't know if this is 100% accurate here. I'm wondering if it's because my control surfaces I have set to deployed, and so it's not reading that correctly. But it's fine. I know it's controllable within that boundary. All right, so that's the shuttle. Let's look at you know what, let's actually get a a space shuttle out, shall we, chat? Let's get the actual space shuttle out. We kind of know to the real world example what it actually flies as. So let's see. We also have our Dorito shuttle that we need to figure out. Yeah, let's look at the KTS orbiter, shall we? Is this empty? It is empty. So if we were to come in empty of cargo. Oh wait, is it empty of cargo? No, it is not empty of cargo. Okay. Empty of cargo. Let's see what this thing can do. So this is a shuttle that we made on a previous save. Oh yeah, a lot of parts to calculate here, chat. All right. Nice. I like it. That actually looks pretty good. All right, there's our stall right there. Oh wait, that's at 8,000. I don't want 8,000. Let's do like on runway approach, so 250. Oh wait, no, this is our entire flight envelope. I'm silly. So right there, that's like very close. So yeah, touchdown should be at 95 meters per second. Yeah, that's at a 6.6 degree angle of attack. That's pretty much on point with what we do. Wind tunnels, you know it. So if we look at something like our lift to drag ratio, well, that actually isn't going to show it much for this one because we're not cruising, right? Like lift to drag ratio is typically what you want to see for your cruise condition. Like this thing isn't cruising, it's never under its own power. This lift to drag ratio is garbage though. It's definitely a shuttle, chat. Pitch input, ooh. Oh wait, 0? That's 0 or 1? Wait, pitch, I'm confused. That's -1 and red is +1, but why does it say pitch input is 0.1? Wait, what? That was weird. That's the clipper? Yeah, that's the clipper. Yes, it is. Why? That should be 1 though, right? I'm confused. Why it shows it as just 0 when it's red. Yeah, okay. I think that's wrong. Anyways, okay. So level flight though. Level flight angle of attack. We can actually see everything pretty well here. Okay, well, let's see our angle of attack curves. Uh-oh. Well, that explains a lot, chat. So this is unstable at all flight conditions at 15,000 meters. Of course, we're never typically that fast, but we usually are typically at 15,000. Well, so this explains a lot. Let me tell you that right now, chat. This I already knew, because this thing cannot go through the high atmosphere without its RCS, which is very much like the space shuttle. The space shuttle required its RCS to go through the high atmosphere as well. So 15,000 meters, pretty high atmosphere. Let's hope it changes at least somewhat when we start to get lower. Say 8,000, going maybe like 400 meters per second. All right, there you go. See, it levels out. It's stable for that point. It's neutrally stable for that point. You want them to be going down, not up. Yeah, exactly. So remember, again, this is not necessarily horrible. It's not great. It means your vehicle by itself is not stable. But you also need to keep in mind your pitch input and what your pitch is able to do for your vehicle. So basically at, say, an angle of attack of, so long as we maintain an angle of attack, positive angle of attack less than 10, we're not maxing out the control surfaces. That's basically what this is saying. So yeah, pitch input of negative 0.999 degrees should be able to keep our nose level, or, you know, keep us under control. So that's good. And that's what we, yeah, wind tunnel is working, Warlock, indeed. But check this out, Warlock. Not great. You do not want this plot to be going in this direction. You want it to be going in the exact opposite direction. This is an unstable vehicle, which we already knew. Granted, we already knew that. So what happens if we're on runway approach going like, say, 1,000 meters at like 150 meters per second? Okay, it's getting better. We're stable right here, chat. Look at that. We get stable. We get stable. Heck yeah. Oh yeah, we get very stable. All the way up to an angle of attack of over 10. That's good. Ugh. So like I said, chat, 100%, I already knew this, okay? Because we had flown this thing multiple times, and there have been multiple occasions where if we run out of RCS, this thing will flip over and be very stable in backwards flight. But yeah, good to see this coming through here on angle of attack curves. Oh, using wind tunnel. This is what, if I had this, we would have been able to see this before we actually made it, to make sure that we don't make an unstable aircraft. But you know, yeah. And what about the velocity curves? So there we can see that's our pitch input. I want lift to drag ratio. No, I'm sorry. I want, yeah. Level flight, angle of attack. So yeah, if we're going 65 meters per second, we have to maintain an angle of attack of around 8 degrees. That's good. I mean, that's fine. And then lift to drag, slope. Yeah, we're basically, yeah, that's okay. Because this thing does land at a pretty high angle of attack, and that just goes to show you right there. God, this is awesome. Wind tunnel is so good. So what you're saying is the cockpit's on the wrong end. Exactly, 100% Hawkalicious. How do you fix that? More surface area, more control surface? I'll tell you how to fix that. By changing this. So right now it shows like it's stable, right? But you also have to understand that our center of lift and center of mass are in a different plane. So it's not quite as you would expect with if they were like side by side to each other, right? So it means basically lift has a less stabilizing effect. And then the other thing is what is not being accounted for is the amount of body lift. Because remember, both wind tunnel, well actually I don't know what wind tunnel does. Maybe it does calculate body lift. Oh, that would actually be something we need to figure out, chat. Does this take into account body lift? I can only imagine. Wait, lift? Oh, it does. Oh, chat, it does. Oh my goodness gracious. It does take into account body lift. Look, 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 look. So when highlighting parts that are lifting in the calculations, it's calculating all of these panels. Oh, that's fantastic. So, okay. Oh, and it's calculating the body lift off of the cargo bay and the cockpit. Oh my God, this is amazing. Wind tunnel, where have you been all of my life? All of my KSP career. Okay, so backing up, rewind. Let me tell you why that's important. So KSP does not take into account body lift for this center of lift position. This does. Wind tunnel does. So basically what that means is both the cockpits, all of the Mark III fuselages create lift in the game, but they create them as body lift. Like if we look at this lifting surface area, 0.35, but it's not a wing. And so I'm pretty sure for the most part, the stock game only uses like wings and maybe these bodies to calculate the lift vector that's shown on this aerodynamic overlay. But what it doesn't show is all of the body lift of these panels. Let me see, does it actually even have it in the thing here? No, it doesn't. It doesn't even have it in the info panel. So when you actually go and you can actually create an aircraft that is just nothing but panels, and when you go and fly it down the runway, you will see a very light blue lift vector coming off of them because these create body lift, but this doesn't take into account body lift. So what is actually going on, why this vehicle looks stable but wind tunnel is saying it's not, is because all of these different panel segments creating lift that's not being taken into account is almost as if we have wings like this that's shifting our center of lift forward, but it's not being shown in stock KSP. Oh my goodness gracious, chat. Wowzers. Yo, Novaraptor gifting a sub, a tier 1 sub to RJ. Welcome, RJ. Novaraptor, thank you so very, very much. Much love to you. I've been trying to understand Kerbal Wind Tunnel more, especially after deciding to make my dinosaur. Yeah, we're running through it all. Ask your questions. Move the bulk of the weight farther forward, the wing or wings backwards. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, basically trying to balance this, but now we know. You know what? Let's actually see. What happens if we actually fly heavier? So our center of lift is now farther back. Our center of mass is now farther back, right? Well, no, because it's actually showing lift. It's actually showing our wet mass and dry mass, so that doesn't even actually matter. Plus, we would actually want it more forward. So what happens? Yeah, okay. Stand by, chat, stand by. So what happens if we did this? I want utility. I want... Where are the ore tanks? Where are the ore tanks? I know they're here. Where are the ore tanks? Are they not in the tanks? Am I just silly, chat? I guess I'm just silly. Yep, I guess I'm just silly. I'm blind. Are they not called ore? Oh, I don't have them unlocked, chat. I don't think I have them unlocked. Either that or I am truly just blind. No, I don't even have them unlocked. Okay. So what happens if we just what's a really heavy part? Probably engines. Engines are pretty heavy. What's a good radially attachable engine that we have? So if we move our mass farther up, now what does that do? Yeah, I haven't unlocked them. Oh, well, that's different. Oh, that's pitch input. Okay, stand by. There you go. We're at least now stable for some flight regime. So up to an angle of attack of 15 degrees and up through an angle of attack of -44. So there you go. Yeah, so we need our mass to be shifted farther forward if we want this vehicle to remain stable. Interesting. Oh my goodness. I just made wind tunnel such a good tool that it takes into account the lifting body force of panels. Or at least it seems like it does. Okay, so that's at low altitude, low velocity. What about higher velocity? That should change it a little bit. Yeah. So if we're coming in empty, which is yellow, then we're stable through -30, and we're also stable through 28 degrees now at a lower altitude. Basically on runway approach, yeah. The only unfortunate thing though is that our pitch input right now. So our pitch input is at -1, so we actually can't achieve that. Can we achieve? Okay, there we go. So that's the other thing to balance though, right chat? Is that you can't just fit as much mass on the end as you want because your pitch authority from your control surfaces only give you so much. So this is telling us right now that we need 13% of our overall pitch authority to maintain an angle of attack of 11.72 degrees at an altitude of 1,000 meters and 150 meters per second. As soon as we cross that threshold, yeah, we get inversion, and we literally can't achieve that. That's what that's saying. So to maintain steady level flight at a -4 degree angle of attack, so that's pitched down, we have to use what, 50%, almost 60% of our interesting. Okay, pretty sure that's what I'm reading into. Looks good. Send it. Yeah, indeed. All right, so what about if we go back up to, say, 24,000 meters and we're flying at, say, 1,800 meters per second? So, yep, we're unstable at that altitude, though, which is understandable because our lifting body and our control surfaces have no effect. Oh, I did negative to... I'm silly. I was like, what? There we go. Yeah, so even at that high altitude with that mass change, we're still unstable. Because our control surfaces have zero effect for that. It does, I'm pretty sure, right, Kerbin? Yeah, you can go to Eve and Duna and Jewel and Lathe. Yeah, if we're at 24,000... Yeah. So if we're at 24,000 meters on Eve, we're going at like 100 meters per second. And we're stable. Look at that. We're stable on Eve, chat. We are stable on Eve in that thick atmosphere. How about that? So we're stable up through -30 and +29. That's kind of funny. But yeah, so there you go. It does do other bodies. Mission accomplished, exactly. So that's that. So we already knew this shuttle flies like garbage, as intended, because it's supposed to be kind of at least looking like the real thing. And it does fly. We've landed it many a times. Just because it's unstable. Remember, this is the wind tunnel mod is showing you static stability. It's not showing you stability when you have control surfaces actuating and things like that. It is showing you the limit of what your control surfaces are capable of, but in general, just because that slope is showing instability, it's not taking into account all of your control inputs. It's not taking into account RCS control if you're using that and things like that. So that is a key note, that we're looking at static stability. Basically no other inputs on your vehicle other than the natural dynamics. Let's see, what about our regular space shuttle? Do I just have like the space shuttle orbiter? I do. Is it this one? This is our work in oh no, this is the very old one. So not that one. You could fix it by moving all of those engines forward, something like a B-2 bomber. That's true. Oh, that's true. Like, yeah, put them inward a little bit. Very possible. I swear I should already have the STS orbiter. Maybe this one? Perhaps this one? Yeah, it looks like it. We never finished this one, but okay. Yeah, this one's not finished, so it might not actually fly great. But anyways, let's see what it does. Please launch it. Yeah. Let's go ahead and see here. Flight in, well. Uh-oh. 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 Anyways. Also, is there anything in the cargo bay and stuff? Negative. Never grow tired of shuttle launches, indeed. All right, so remember, this is for level flight. The level flight, it's saying that we need to be under, basically, we need to be under 500 meters per second to achieve level flight. If we're going, yeah. If we're below, say, 20,000, we need to be going 200 meters per second to maintain level flight. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. We'd have an angle of attack of 10.17. Okay. So yeah, we have a very, very narrow corridor of what we could achieve in this shuttle as level flight. That's the key thing. Like, our maximum level flight near like 5,000 meters, we have to be going no more than 147 meters per second. As soon as we go outside of that, we're no longer in level flight. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Let's see what we got. Ooh, dear chat. Well, that's actually not bad. Okay, stand by. Let's go ahead and go to -90 and +90. Interesting. So, we're fairly stable starting at small angles of attack, negative angles of attack, and even that's like barely stable. That's like more neutrally stable. Remember, this is also without pitch inputs. And then we get really, really stable all the way up through 44 degrees angle of attack. Now remember, this is at 13,000 meters per second, and at 13,000 meters. At 13,000 meters, we're probably more like 900 meters per second. So that only shifted a little bit. Yeah, more than that and you're climbing. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, I mean, that's not bad. So it definitely can't handle, like, pitch down very well, which, I mean, yeah, you don't really need to pitch down too much. So remember, this is not necessarily pitch. This is your angle of attack. This is the difference between your pointing vector and your velocity vector. So having an angle of attack of -18 means you're pointing down, but your velocity vector's up here, right? So you're like moving sideways, or you're moving down way more than or you're pointing down way more than you're moving down. So that, of course, is going to be inherently stable. You should almost never be flying like that, right? You should never be flying pointing nose down but moving more sideways at -18 degrees. Like, you should almost never hit that, right? So what we really care about is from 0 positive. And so this vehicle is actually stable. It's actually pretty stable. All the way up to 44 degrees angle of attack at this altitude and at this velocity. So what happens if we go to say 24,000 as our metric, and that's going to be at around 1,800 meters per second. Re-entry velocity, right? So if we apply that and apply, it maintains it. That's actually really good. It maintains that pretty well. Yeah, it shifts our angle of attack, our negative angle of attack that we can handle. But for the most part, it's pretty good. And the reason why I think it's so weird around here at this negative angle of attack is because our lift vector is at the bottom of our shuttle. Right? Our wing, if you think about this system as a pendulum, our mass is up here, our wing is down here creating that force. And so we're basically, if we're pointing down, it's going to want to flip upside down and fly with the wings on top. And I think that's why this gets squirrely up here at such a high angle of attack pointing down, is because if our velocity vector is this way and we're pointing down at negative 18 degrees, it's going to want to flip over and fly wings up. So yeah, definitely get squirrely there. But like I said, we should almost never be doing that. We should never be pointing the nose down if our velocity vector is not already pointing in that direction. Because this is a glider after all. Velocity curves, awesome. We can see our stall is at around 84 meters per second. Not bad. I mean, that's, there you go. You know that you have to land this vehicle. Oh, that's actually, oh, I'm sorry. That's a 24,000. I'm silly, chat. One second. Let me bring this down to say 500. Ah, there we go. There we go. So if we want to choose a angle of attack condition of around 4 degrees on touchdown, then we can only go a maximum of 70, or sorry, a minimum of 70 meters per second in order to achieve that. That's pretty good. So yeah, our space shuttle is it's kind of actually on point. What about our old space shuttle? Because we hadn't finished this one. This one we're not done with yet. But I'm wondering what our current space shuttle that could be flown actually does. All your lift, thus all your drag is at the bottom. So if you're AOA down, then your mass is more in the front of your drag. And your mass is more in front of your drag. Well, I guess that's true. It definitely does typically want to fly with the center of lift on top versus your center of mass. Right? Because if you're nosing down and your lift vector is at the bottom, I'm just trying to think of how it actually flies characteristically, because if you do point the nose down, it does tend to want to flip over because it wants the lift vector to stabilize pointing up with your force of gravity pointing down, kind of like a pendulum is stable. So I think I have this under DM2. Let me see if I still have it. Actually, it's not under DM2 here. Not under KTS. STS maybe? Did I just call it STS? STS. Flight ready DM2. With the pad. Yeah. Yep, let's see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. So we're on the same page. Good. So yeah, this is our older shuttle. Let's see, where is this? Take you off. Delete the pad. There we go. Okay. What does wind tunnel look like for the pad? Indeed. Very similar, very narrow corridor for level flight. Angle of attack curves. Pitching torque. Ooh, this shuttle's actually elite. Wait, do we have anything in it? Come on. Oh, there we go. No, it doesn't. 570. Really? This vehicle is unstable? I don't feel like I've noticed this one being unstable. Have I? Maybe I have. Well, let's go. Let's see. What if we're at, like, say 100 meters per second at 500? Yeah, we're still unstable. Pitching torque, not pitch input. Let's see the whole flight regime. Gosh, this is such a great tool, chat. Yeah, we're unstable. Okay. Wait, where's their center of lift and center of mass? Again, panels, chat. This is not taking into account panels. But this is. And then what about if we increase this? It is very, very neutral, like very neutral at the very worst case scenario, according to that. And with that being so close, then the center of lift, the body lift, from all these panels generating lift as well is, yeah, I can definitely see how it's thrown in front now. Definitely gotta tease it. I have a couple of wing segments here just to provide some lift. I'm curious, what would we have to do to this shuttle to make it stable? How far can I actually do it? Oh, I can actually move them really far back. Okay. Like right there. That one's kind of at the limit. Yeah, that one's at the limit. Okay. Well, I guess I can move it up a little bit. Okay, there we go. So does that do anything? I mean, it's so little lift from those two wings that I doubt it, but I'm curious. Yeah, well, it actually evened out our dry mass one a little bit. We're kind of more neutrally stable here. That did help. But that's interesting. All right, well, I'll show you the last trick up the sleeve, chat, that I know will help. Yeah, see, that definitely changed the yellow curve, our dry mass curve. The last thing we can do, take this and move that down. And, well, I wonder if it takes that into account as pitch input and not static stability. Ah, no, it does. If they're angled, then it takes it into account. Yeah, because this vehicle, right, we used the body flap to trim us out in flight. Yep, and we get close to stable. I mean, we're still unstable. Interesting. Okay. But then, of course, if we look at our pitch input, the pitch input actually doesn't look all that good. So long. Let me put these back. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, this shuttle, I understand, because sometimes when we go to flare, it wants to pitch up way too much, and that's exactly why we found the reason why, chat. Because of this right here. Not so much here, not so much here, but right here, chat. Shuttles are a goofy thing indeed. I don't know what the pitch input is trying to tell me here. Is it saying, like, maxing out at 100%? At 500 altitude, we can't go above an angle of attack of 0.4 degrees? Or is it saying... No, yeah, what? I'm not sure what these limits are telling me here. This one's a weird curve. I'm not sure if something's... Like, I feel like something's not getting calculated correctly. Because what is this saying? At an angle of attack of 0.44 degrees. Is it saying that in order to maintain that, we have to use 100% of our pitch authority? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what this one is telling me. Yeah, indeed, Uncle Bill. Too true. But not bad. Like, seriously, I dig it. Yeah, definitely don't save. Definitely don't save. So if we bring it back to our shuttle. None of these shuttles, of course. Or even back to our aircraft. So let's actually take it and fly it and see like what happens, right? So let's take a gander here. That's pitch input. So yeah, we know that we're very, very stable. Both when we're wet and dry at 500 altitude. Let's actually look at our entire flight envelope. And let's bring it down to say 0 to 550. Yeah. Also, the Y can go until, say, 10,000. Actually, let's go to 14,000. Oh, it's calculating. Okay. For a second, I was like, what is going on? Because so, like, now the point is like, okay, we've built a plane. Now what we need to do is actually see if it flies like wind tunnel says it should. So we need to calculate, or we need to at least see what's our stall velocity and what's a good cruising and landing as well. Yo, what's up, Moto Kid? How are you doing? Hey, what's up, Cecil? More career mode. Glad you got your wind tunnel issues fixed. Indeed, and it's amazing, I have to say. Oh, we're on Eve, by the way. Oh, that could have been an issue. That could have been an issue. I should go back to my show. Were we doing Eve that entire time? There we go. All right, so no, I don't want that. Apply. There we go. Okay, so we know that our stall velocity for a decent angle of attack, indicating stall, is like 32 meters per second. So at 32 meters per second, we're going to be flying at like 10 degrees angle of attack just to maintain steady level flight. So that's good. And then for a decent takeoff velocity, so if we say our stall speed is like if our absolute minimum stall speed is say 32 meters per second, and if we wanted to add 30% to that, then our actual takeoff velocity would be more like 45. Yeah, it'd be more like 45. Yeah. Okay, that seems good. So 45 meters per second takeoff velocity, and then 32 meters per second stall velocity. And then at 8,000 meters, at maximum, sorry, I want lift to drag ratio. At lift to drag ratio, maximum lift to drag, at 8,000 meters, we should be going 118 meters per second. And then in excess, or how about in fuel economy? Oh, that's actually not bad. Yeah, that's actually really on point with fuel economy right there. We can actually see just how good of our fuel economy goes. So that's our maximum lift to drag ratio at that point right there. And then if we come off of our maximum lift to drag ratio, we can get more fuel efficient so long as we can achieve that velocity there. Oh, okay. Interesting. But that's going to be our cruise condition right there. 118 meters per second. Well, that's true, Jason. That's absolutely true. IIQ banana for scale. Ah, that makes sense. 100% that makes sense. Yeah, good, good. Also gave me a laugh on your last video when I recognized you're still running that little alphabetical Kerbals mod I did. Yes, yes it is. I totally am, 100%. It's one of my favorites. because I use fantastic viewers as my Kerbals, it's so good to be able to like just see them in alphabetical order. Okay. So let's do. So that's going to be 32 meters per second stall speed, 45 meters per second takeoff velocity. Landing velocity is probably going to, we need to see our angle of attack for our landing velocity. Landing velocity, let's call it an arbitrary 4.5 degrees angle of attack maximum. So our landing velocity is going to be 60. So 32, 45, 60. That's what we're going to show here, chat. And that's of course without any of our flaps down and things like that. So this is just going to be static testing here. So let's go ahead and load in our test pilot, our dedicated Dr. Longballs Kerman. There we go. No jeb. And we're going to fly it. Yes, actually, Uncle Bill, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, it actually does give you your fuel optimal climb as well as your time optimal climb. I don't know how realistic those are because, you know, with how KSP's engines and aerodynamics are, like the atmosphere is, like for me, for this plane, we would have to climb for fuel optimal at like a 40-degree climb angle. Like that's, I mean, yeah, you could do it, but like realistically, that's not realistic. But yeah, totally for space planes, you can do that. All right, let's go ahead and figure it out, chat. So we want to roll, to basically rotate and be off the ground at 45 degrees, or sorry, 45 meters per second. There it is. That was 45. We're up. And remember, this thing likes to generally fly at a 3-degree angle of attack. So angle of attack here, 0.1, okay. Is that cruising condition? I think we need a 3-degree angle of attack. All right, let's go ahead and climb up to 8,000 meters. And then I think it was, what, 118 meters per second, chat? For a maximum lift to drag ratio, which we can get our lift to drag ratio. It should be around, what was it, 4.4, I think, somewhere around there. Should be our lift to drag ratio if we can achieve that. See, this is our fuel optimal climb, like a 40-degree climb. We're supposed to be going 220 meters per second, though. So I didn't quite get my velocity up enough to maintain. But yeah, look at that, chat. Yeah, fuel optimal climb in progress here. Pretty happy with this so far, chat. Pretty happy with it. All right, there's 8,000. Let's go ahead and turn ourselves around here. Back to the runway. So right now, our lift to drag ratio is 3.2. Climbing back up to 8,000, turning back towards KSC. Okay. We're going to wait until our velocity drops a little bit here. Keep climbing. Angle of attack is 4. Oh, that's actually on point. What's our lift to drag ratio? 3.7. Okay. I am very pleased about this, chat. Okay, let's try and maintain our altitude, but need to drop our velocity here. So lift to drag ratio is getting up there, chat. 4.1. There it is. Okay, past our mark. So we're trying to maintain our trying to get up to our cruise condition here, which, like, of course it doesn't have to be perfect in real life, right? When we're flying this manually and whatnot, and we don't know like the throttle settings and whatnot, but it is supposed to be an angle of attack of like 4 degrees, somewhere around there, at a velocity of around 118 meters per second, and we should be able to achieve a lift to drag ratio of around 4.4, and that should be our cruise setting. Okay, a little bit more throttle. I wish SAS was a little bit better. There's 118. There's 4.4. There's 4.4. Oh, nice. Yeah, it's definitely accurate. It's hard to get the throttle settings perfect, of course. And the SAS doesn't want to hold altitude super well. But we were there for a second. All right, let's check our stall speed. I think I did my stall speed at what, like 250? This is fine. Totally fine. You're never gonna stall like this, indeed. I don't think wind tunnel mod can work with FAR. FAR kind of has its own wind tunnel mod, if you will. If you're asking me why I don't play with FAR, it's because it's a little much. It's a little much where I like the stock game, how it is. Could probably build a sweet autopilot, no kidding. No kidding. Okay, trying to get down to around, probably pull off at like 350. That's about where we were. I think I originally put it in as 250 in wind tunnel, but that's fine. And so we said our stall condition was going to be around 32 meters per second. Oh yeah, it's getting hard here. At a 10-degree angle of attack. There's stall. I literally can't pull up anymore. That's 32. It's pretty close. Pretty close, chat. I'm also at not two. I'm only now at 250 when we were doing that at 350 as well. What's up, Roro? How are you? All right, so our optimal configuration for landing should be around 60 meters per second in a perfect world. I'm doing pretty good, thank you so much. Should do a bank stall. How do you classify a bank stall? Is that where you just pull into a turn until your nose starts to dip? Like, how do you quantify a bank, a bank stall? Or is that literally just banking and seeing, like, yeah, the spiral of death? Well, that's the spiral mode. So is that what you're talking about, Jason? Ooh, it's higher for sure. It's like 40. Probably even higher than that, like 45 is where I was starting to see struggle. Yeah, like 47. It's really where we can't do it. But yeah, if you weren't in here earlier, we were playing around with this mod called Wind Tunnel, which shows you all of your flight characteristics in the SPH. And we're testing it for the first time. We have some numbers, like our takeoff velocity should have been around 45 meters per second. It was pretty much 45 meters per second according to Wind Tunnel. Our stall velocity was calculated at around 32 meters per second. It's pretty much on par, maybe a little bit higher, like 35. And now we're going to be testing our optimal landing speed, which Wind Tunnel says 60 meters per second. Yeah, definitely not Warlock, because in real life we have things like wind and turbulence, and yeah, totally not ideal. A high speed stall, yeah. Or just, yeah, like, or even just one side of your wing can stall, right? And then you're really in trouble. Then you're like Fairchild E-52 bomber stall. Ooh. Or yeah, was it Fairchild? Fairfax E-52. All right, so 60 meters per second is what we're targeting. I'm hoping my SAS can actually work with me here. Should be around a 5-degree angle of attack at around 60 meters per second. Oh, right, I forgot to take those off of... Those are just for looks, they should not actually be... I should really get my joystick out. This would have made it so much easier. Ah, doesn't want to go on the ground. He really does not want to land, chat. And you'll rotate to the ground, yep. Oh, this is fine, chat. This is nominal, right? She's a floater, indeed. Yeah, SAS really makes it difficult. I have to trim it out manually here. Whee! What? Make one be. This was a bad idea. No, we're fine. Quick recover. All right, now time to go back to the airport. And stall. And not stall. I really dig this aircraft. There we go. Trimming it out manually over having SAS is much better. Yeah, me too, Jason. That'd be really nice. Wow, really cooked the brakes on that one, chat. Low altitude aerobatics, don't worry. Yeah, don't worry about it. B1 says, huh? All right, let's take one of these. Not that one. Not that, this one. Take you, actually, yeah. You know what? We're gonna just do one of these. Just gonna do one of these here. Atmospheric autopilot mods, better SAS. Yeah, that's probably true. Indeed. Yeah, I've seen bits of it. What's up, Sleazy? Did you land a Falcon 9? We have. We actually have landed Falcon 9s. Absolutely. Yes, we most certainly have. We've done it autonomously to some degree as well. You've seen the DCX land autonomously, right, Sleazy? We use some of the same code to kind of fudge a Falcon 9 landing RTLS style autonomously. That works. I just want to see, I want y'all to see unable to launch. Oh, spaceplane hangar, right, of course. Stop it. Back. Here. Land. Oh yeah. You can just go to last night. We did an automated landing of it. I think I also have a short for it, and possibly even a video for it as well. But yeah, we've been working with it a few times. Yeah, we'll probably run it once. I do love flying that thing for obvious reasons. It's just it's the coolest thing to me. I want to get back into coding as well with like there's a lot of stuff obviously that we could still code. Like we could start working on more robust flight trajectories, like using power explicit guidance. We could start working on like stability augmentation systems for like the space shuttle, so that way we can do like a fly-by-wire. Like there's a lot of stuff that we could do, chat. Anyways, let's go ahead and just get this up into altitude. I don't really care about flying any particular thing. I just want to show y'all like how stable this is. Like when we were looking at wind tunnel, right? We basically saw this thing cannot be flipped. It is super stable. It does not have enough control actuation in the control surfaces to even be able to go unstable. It's like almost too stable because it takes a lot of control authority just to pick the nose up, but it's a shuttle, so what are you gonna do, right? I'm young and I want to learn. Well, welcome. I hope you can find a place here to learn, Sleazy, for sure. Do you think there is any feature for KSP2? Can mods make it any better? I have no idea. I don't know the state of KSP2 mod development. Like, I know they were building like very good mod integrations into KSP2, but I don't know how far they got into that. Like the mods that are now for KSP2 are pretty limited. In terms of what are my in terms of is there hope for KSP2? I think there's always hope. I think there's always hope. All right, let's go ahead and. Oops. Yeah, that's fine. Who needs a automated abort system that's stable? Oh, I'm also controlling from the wrong spot. That would actually be why. There we go. But yeah, let's fly this shuttle, and I'll show you guys just how stable it really is. Oops. There we go. All right, all control surfaces are working, and let's fly. All right, so you can already see that no matter how pitched up I am at 14 kilometers, we're not flying level. So you remember that plot that we saw in Wind Tunnel chat where it was just a straight line, like curving down with a big blue splotch over here and a big red splotch over here? It's because we literally cannot fly this thing in steady level flight. Literally cannot. It is not possible to fly in steady level flight with this thing. My goal is to work at SpaceX. That would be fantastic. Absolutely. Well, best of luck to you, Sleazy. Yes, definitely. Well, you know, I think you've definitely are in a good spot for it. We have a pretty great community here of a lot of smart people on the Twitch side, also streaming on Twitch as well, and then on YouTube as well. And we do videos. Today we just got finished doing a space news segment at the start of the stream, and then yeah, we use Python to fly our rockets autonomously. All right, so notice the massive angle of attack, chat. All right, I'm gonna pull all the way up. See, literally cannot pull the nose beyond to go unstable. Even with RCS, the RCS is not even going to be enough to pull our nose up. Literally the most stable aircraft. Notice the 15-degree angle of attack at this velocity at this altitude, which was something that we definitely saw in Wind Tunnel. Would you be able to do a Starship launch? I don't have a Starship vehicle in the game, but yeah, eventually that's kind of something I want to definitely do. And maximum nose up. Nope. Literally can't. To be honest, the future of KSP would probably be through a new dedicated project from scratch. Yeah, I have honestly no idea. I'm hopeful. I'm definitely hopeful. Are you deploying a contract? No, right now we're just kind of messing with the Wind Tunnel mod. We'll probably get back into contract work tomorrow. Yeah, we were really just learning what all Wind Tunnel could do tonight, because Wind Tunnel is fantastic. We ran through like everything that you can figure out with your vehicle from it, from all the different plots. It's very comprehensive, and probably the coolest thing is that it actually takes into account body lift for your vehicles, something that stock KSP's like little blue lift vector overlay doesn't take into account. So if you're ever wondering why your vehicle that you build is unstable and yet your lift overlay is behind your center of mass, and you're like, why? How is this possible? Well, it's because, well, Wind Tunnel will show you why, and it's great. All right, 90 meters per second. It's pretty much on point. 10-degree angle of attack, roughly, maybe not quite 10 degrees. Is, like I said, what we've been seeing in Wind Tunnel, so that's pretty good. We're gonna do a spiral down to the runway, and then I really want to see if we can land this on its wheels. I don't know if we can, but I'd like to do it for science, since we're just gonna revert anyways. Okay, here we go. We're all lined up. A little bit steeper than I wanted to be, but it's okay. Oh, and we're down. All right. Easy chatting. Exit stage left. So yeah, this thing can land on its wheels, so that's good to know. Fly together, land together somewhat. Yeah, somewhat indeed. All right, let me in. Open the doors. Not bad, chat. Pretty happy with that. Yeah, setting off the landing celebration fireworks indeed. Welcoming himself home. Yeah, words are hard. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, so this is our DCX vehicle, Sleazy. It's basically built, inspired by a real-life design of a vehicle called DCX from the 1990s, and it was a suborbital demonstrator for what was supposed to be later a single stage to orbit vehicle. And so we've recreated it in KSP here to test all of our flight avionics. Let's go ahead and load it up, put it out on the runway. We'll verticate it, we'll launch it, and we'll probably have to call it quits for the night after that. I'm good at Python and C++. Well, you're way ahead of the game then. Those are both fantastic languages to know if you're getting into aerospace. C++ is pretty much the standard at the moment, though, of course, if you guys have been tracking the aerospace industry, there is a big push to move away from C and actually into like Rust, which is fantastic because that's what I use on a daily basis. And then Python is great for simulation work and stuff. Very heavy in the aerospace industry too. Yeah, Roro, have a good night, my friend. Thanks for hanging out, stopping by. Yeah, didn't go well. Yeah, I honestly don't know how, like it blows my mind, chat, that Squad in the early days developed this game, KSP1, for pennies on the dollar of what Take-Two was building KSP2 for. And I mean, I don't know enough about game development and stuff to be able to, you know, be accurate by any means on like why, but that just blows my mind. Like why? If anybody in chat can tell me in layman's terms why Take-Two was spending millions to develop KSP2 versus what Squad was able to do in the early days. You hate Rust? That's fair. I know it's very much a love or hate programming language. And there we go. Because Take-Two money grab? I'm not sure. I mean, like, what does that mean? They're spending the money, so what does that mean they're money grabbing? I need more than that. Agile, lots of cost bloat. So are you saying Squad was doing Agile or Take-Two was doing Agile? And, you know, if you don't do Agile very well, then that can actually lead to much worse things. Or are you saying that Squad, being smaller, was able to do Agile better? They ended up making back more than they spent. I mean, I would hope so. You gotta make profit. I mean, that makes sense. That's fine. Take-Two is doing Agile. Gotcha. I don't know. I don't know the whole story, chat, honestly. All right, let's get some VS Code going. That was Bing. Go away. Oh, God. Bing popped up because I apparently hit web search. Disgusting. Anyways. All right, so this is our code that we developed fully from the ground up here during streams. I think most of this stuff for DCX is actually in my old live streams and videos on YouTube. And yeah, we developed all of this. So what this vehicle should do is go all the way up to roughly 70 kilometers altitude, go into a belly flop mode to maximize its drag during entry, target the landing pad during its descent, move towards it using its body lift, and then once it gets close to the pad, verticate and land. So let's see what we can do. Ideally, we can get back to the pad within like 80 meters or so. Let's say within a couple hundred meters, we should be able to aim for the pad. When you finish all this, can you show the code, the Falcon 9 and KSP? The Falcon 9 code, use this code right here. Yeah, the Falcon 9 used this code. So we're actually flying the same code that the Falcon 9 did that we used a while ago. Did you mention Rust? Yes, I use it on a daily basis, and that's something that a lot of the aerospace industry and a lot of industries are actually moving towards. Mainly also because, interestingly enough, the whole politics behind it. Oh man, why is my frames dropping? My connections are going out at the moment. This happened last night too, chat, so I'm gonna give it a second. If you guys notice frame rate dropping and all that sort of stuff, it is not you. I'm pretty sure it's me and my ISP. So we're just gonna give it a second before we launch. It's much more difficult than it looks. Oh, 100%, especially when you have like a whole bunch of you know, systems or components being developed by different people, and they all have to be integrated together, and they all, you know, yeah, you have different branches being worked on, different features being worked on, different, yeah, totally understandable. Especially for like game development, when you have both like actual code and then like models, like, you know, 3D model generation and whatnot, like totally different things that all have to be wrapped together. Kind of crazy. Is this a flight test? Yeah, technically. We're kind of doing it for fun. We've kind of gotten the code in a pretty good spot where now I want to do the next thing, which is start working on basically launching this and like landing it on a drone ship, or like targeting like another vehicle, like a drone ship like for Falcon 9 does, and have it actually translate over there and target that instead. There's also other things that I want to work on. I've been a Rust developer since 2021. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, like if you've been in Rust development, have you heard of like the big shift from the White House mandating a lot of systems move towards memory safety frameworks? So like DARPA actually just issued a major challenge. I don't know if it's been issued, but like the pre-release is out where DARPA is actually asking for companies to be able to translate some of their legacy C++ into Rust. Can I see how you get data from flight? Yeah, data, we just use matplotlib. Actually, do I use it on this one? I don't think I do. Oh, I do have plotting utils. Plotting utils is just matplotlib. I have a separate thing here. So yeah, I just plot it or put it into an array and then plot it at the very end. Very, very easy. There's other things that you can do as well that I don't take advantage of. Yep, all of this code is on GitHub. Indeed, you can see my GitHub down below the video on Twitch, and then also in the YouTube video description as well. Politics behind language development, saying it so, indeed. I've heard of it, indeed, yeah. So, yeah, Rust is really getting Popular. Oh, is this why? Updating? Uploading? Is it because of this that we're not having good connections? Let's see if that helps. Yeah, I'm still waiting for whatever reason, my connection is not stable through OBS. So I'm waiting, so that way you guys can actually see the launch and whatnot. So we're just going to give it a second. Hopefully it'll stabilize. So when you run the code, the rocket launch, yeah, indeed. Yeah, so when I run the code, it goes through everything here. So what I'm using is a mod called KRPC. KRPC is basically a mod that you download and install for Kerbal Space Program, and then it also has its own Python package. You can also use, I think, C#. I think you can use Lua. You can use a lot of different languages. I'm using Python through the Python package. And yeah, it allows you to basically create your instance of your vehicle. It allows you to then connect from your Python into the game, and then it runs, yeah, you basically build whatever you want to build with it. I have never tried KOS. The reason why I gravitated immediately towards KRPC is because I wanted to use an actual real-life coding language. Right, so you can use real-life languages to control your rocket, and that's what really caught my attention with that. I know of KOS, but I've never used it. It looks good on YouTube? Okay, well that's good. For whatever reason, I think Twitch side, are you guys all frame? Are we dropping frames? I can only imagine. I see my OBS says that we're in the red. For whatever reason, it's unstable. I don't know if I need to like reset or like what has to happen, or if my computer is downloading something in the background that I can't see. I don't know. I don't think Rust is going to be the savior DARPA needs. I don't think so either. Like, Rust is fantastic, but it's certainly not a end-all be-all solution. But maybe it's at least good enough for what they want it to be. Because their primary desire is memory safety. At least that seems to be what they want to do. And Rust is certainly can be memory safe, and it can certainly do a lot of what C++ can do as a systems language. So it's good. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly what DARPA needs their legacy systems replaced. What would you say are the biggest solvable issues in the space industry right now? Crazy Mad Scientist. Well, that is a great... on YouTube it looks good. Okay. Well, I think on Twitch it's still lagging, so we're just going to give it a second, and then we'll... kind of looks like 10 to 15 frames per second to me. Gotcha. It says 10 to 15 frames per second. Well, we'll give it a few more minutes. I'm hoping... I don't know why my internet is not being stable on Twitch's side. It's kind of weird. It's weird to me that YouTube is stable and Twitch is not. Like, if they're both going through OBS, like, I don't understand why one is not playing nice versus the other. But anyways, going back to your question, Crazy Mad Scientist, what would you say are the biggest solvable issues in the space industry right now? I'll tell you what I think is one of the most up and coming problems in the aerospace industry right now that already has solutions, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and that's in-space servicing, assembly, and manufacturing, also known as ISAM. Being able to autonomously build things in space, being able to autonomously attach to other things in space, like rendezvous and docking to systems that might not be designed to be docked to, so you actually have like a grappler and be able to grapple these systems, being able to remove space debris. I think is a huge, it's definitely one of the fastest growing sectors of the aerospace industry. 100%. Like, there are billions of dollars being funneled into ISAM right now. Another really big, I think, sector within the industry is still getting into launch. And when I say launch, I mean we are still trying to drive launch costs down. It's nice to not have launch be necessarily the largest ticket item on a spacecraft, but you're still paying, typically for a $5 million satellite, you're typically, even with SpaceX, still spending $3 million just for launch. So like half of your costs for just the spacecraft in general are going to your launch costs. And so it's definitely much better than it was, you know, even just 6 years ago. But you know, I think there's still ways that launch costs can be reduced. I'll tell you probably the biggest thing that I'm still waiting for as a satellite operator is I want satellite systems to be cheaper. We still have not yet commoditized satellite systems, like satellite components, which can be reused and standardized for like all satellite systems, right? But like just trying to purchase a reaction wheel, for instance, right? The attitude control system for a satellite, you're still typically running like $75,000 per reaction wheel, which is just like, I don't personally understand why when we've already standardized those reaction wheels. And yeah, so commoditizing different space subsystem components would be really, really nice. And there are people working on that, but it hasn't taken off. Twitch being twitchy, yeah, I'm afraid. Oh, we stabilized. All I had to say was Twitch being twitchy. What's up, Lava Lamp? How are you? Is coding in KSP rocket, in a KSP rocket like this realistic? To some degree. Demon, you can make it as realistic as you want. That's kind of like the great thing. When you code, you can develop whatever system you want. Meaning you can develop your system as realistic as you can possibly be. Now, what's great about KSP, or what might also be not so great about KSP, depending on how realistic you want to be, is that we live in a perfect world in KSP, right? There's no like flexible body dynamics like rockets have in real life. There's no material like dynamics that we have to worry about. There's no combustion instabilities that we have to worry about. There's no wind, there's no turbulence, right? There's none of those things. But in general, the algorithms that you develop and run with KRPC in KSP for coding can be as realistic as what runs on Falcon 9, 100%. So yeah, you can definitely make some realistic stuff, but it just won't be true to life necessarily because we don't have all of those world imperfections, right? When are we launching? We are launching pretty much right now, as soon as I get through all of the chat, which I'm almost done with. How are you today? I'm doing very good, NASA. Thank you so much for asking. Twitch FPS are back to normal. Good. I'm delighted by the low-level performance for Rust for different hardware targets. I'm doing Rust development for embedded devices too in my spare time. Yep, that's what I do on a daily basis is Rust embedded systems. What I realized recently is that Starship is just going to kill all the current launchers on economics. It's also going to kill the holy grail of launchers, the SSTO. I'm not so sure. I haven't seen that yet. And I don't know how long it's going to take for Starship to get there. I think it'll be absolutely, you know, it'll probably be the largest thing this side of the decade, right? Like for the next decade or more, it'll probably be Starship that will be like the biggest technology revolution. But yeah, I don't know for how long, and I don't know what it actually is going to do to these other systems, right, as we innovate more and drive down costs, get better materials and things like that. In theory, 3 or 4 stage fully recoverable lifter could be even better. Well, that's definitely true from like a payload to orbit standpoint, right? Because you're dropping the unnecessary mass as you go into orbit, but you're also basically saving some of your propellant in order to get that system back. Which is why I like smart reuse that ULA uses or conceptualizes for Atlas and Vulcan, because that way you can get your most expensive part of your rocket back, arguably, while expending all of your usable propellant to get your system into space. But yeah, so there's definitely drawbacks, but yeah, no matter what, we've seen the benefits of reusability, and it's going to continue for sure for a while. All right, chat, I think we're ready. Let's go ahead and get this started. We are going to fly this puppy in 10 seconds. You know what? We can even do this. We'll go into here. We're going to do a countdown of T-minus 10 seconds. And there we go. Vehicles in startup. Is your Euler step just to future predict a ballistic trajectory? Yes. Yeah. Just using an Euler integrator to basically run simulations to figure out my apoapsis to account for drag. Right, because the in-game apoapsis doesn't account for drag. So yeah, basically just that. Your ballistic trajectory, yeah. And there we go. So now it should target an apoapsis of around 70 kilometers to account for, it'll actually burn beyond 70 kilometers to account for our atmospheric losses due to drag as we coast. That's what the Euler integrator is for. And then, yeah, it'll shut down and coast up to that altitude. Is a hybrid plane rocket feasible or practical? A hybrid plane rocket. You mean like Skylon? Skylon is like a fixed wing aircraft that has rocket engines, essentially, right? Is that what you're kind of talking about? Do you watch S3? What is S3? Probably not, since I don't know what that stands for, but also maybe, and I just haven't heard of the acronym or like the abbreviation. For high energy orbits, bringing back the whole booster just doesn't make sense. True. Do you think SpaceX is going to catch the booster on IFT-5? I think so. They seem to be doing upgrades. We just watched it earlier today on our space news segment. It very much seems like they're doing improvements to the catch arms, what looks to be in preemptively ahead of a possible booster catch, so I'd like to think so. I would certainly like to think so. What is the rules for hardcore for this career? Stand by. Let me see. I know I have a command for this. There we go. There you can see my rule set. All right, 71 kilometers is what we're going to be coasting up to. Have you done multiplayer in KSP? I have not done multiplayer. Actually, is that the most recent? You know, I haven't streamed in... we just got back into streaming after I was away on a hiatus. I was getting married. Let me actually see if that's the most recent version. I don't think it is. All right, still coasting up. So what you're about to see in rapid succession here, chat, is once we coast up to 71.3 kilometers, we're going to enter a very brief altitude hold, at which point we are then going to transition to our descent phase and our descent attitude. Stand by. There's our altitude hold, and rotate. Here we go. I think this is multicopter, quadcopter. Oh, building a quadcopter in KSP. Gotcha. I thought you were talking about multiplayer, like dark multiplayer or something. There you go. That tiny URL should be to my most recent flight log, which has my rule set at the very beginning. All right, this is our descent configuration. We basically do a belly flop through the atmosphere in order to increase our drag area, because otherwise this thing is shaped very aerodynamically, and if we just try to come straight in propulsively, we don't have enough delta V or engine power to stop ourselves before we slam into the ground. So we basically fly like Starship does, belly first, to keep our drag area up. The Kerbal size airing, I've been getting that occasionally too. I think you just have to refresh or like wait for it to come back. I've gotten that before. It's not down, it's not permanent, but you kind of have to refresh or wait for a little bit for it to come back. Indeed, Uncle Bill, indeed. I was thinking like a plane that can take off like normal, but a high angle of attack. Then when it gets high enough, the lift would no longer help and start rocket. Yeah, so you need to look at, are you familiar with Skylon? That's the concept anyways. I don't know how close, I don't even know where Skylon is in development, if they're still in development, but yeah, there are definitely concepts that have been worked on for that. And yeah, totally practical. If you can get the if you can get it to work like an airplane, right? Like that's the downfall of most reusable systems, is that you have to get its launch cadence up. You have to be able to, you know, turn around missions quickly and have a really low downtime. All right, so we are in control mode 2B. We are 6,500 meters away from the pad, traveling at 141 meters per second towards the pad. And we are pitching up at 11 degrees commanded in order to slow ourselves down. There we go, aiming towards the pad still. Now 3 kilometers, pitching up at 17 degrees. We're trying to pitch up so we slow ourselves down so we don't overshoot, or at least we don't overshoot by much. Once we get within a kilometer, it should pitch up to around 70 degrees. There it goes. Very nice. We're going to overshoot just a small amount. That's no problem. There we go. Pointing back down towards the pad, aiming towards the pad. $300 meters. And we should be transitioning here shortly to landing mode. There it is. Engines on, landing burn. There we go. Constant rate of descent. Landing gear down. And there we go. That was fully autonomous. So that's what DCX can do. And we've used the same code on a Falcon 9 style of rocket and have landed back on the octagon near the pad. So definitely pretty good. Definitely a lot of room for improvement, but that's for who was asking Sleazy. That's what we got going on with DCX and our automated rocketry. And we're within 130 meters of the pad. Like, that's where we took off from. We're 130 meters from it, not bad. Is it even possible? A quadcopter? It is. I think EJ kind of made a quadcopter, if I'm not mistaken. The way you have to do it, you have to use cow controllers with like different priority settings, and you have to basically tune them to be able to like slow like one side down so you can yaw, and then like have one side have collective over the other if you want to like roll and things like that. It's definitely doable. It's definitely difficult though. It's so satisfying indeed. Only just deployed before touchdown? Yep. It most certainly did. Most certainly did. But it did, nonetheless. Right? Almost, or no, I'm sorry. Barely still counts. That's the word. That's Reaction Engines has a lot of investment from US companies working for DoD. Lots of ITAR to ensure we won't get much news. Skylon concept hype was really a vehicle for promoting reaction engines. Gotcha. Meaning the engines are likely real, but the plane is a dream. Understood. Yeah, that's sad. But hopefully, I mean, you know, once you have the engines, the plane is doable, is at least the positive thing there. But anyways, chat. Anywho, that is going to have to do it for me this evening. It's 11 p.m. Mountain Time, and I got work in the AM. So I'm going to head out, chat. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. We should be back here tomorrow starting around 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And we'll be getting into some more KSP, back into contracts, back into automating rocketry, and all of that jazz. So thanks for hanging out with me. Hope you guys enjoyed the Go No Go poll of rocket news and all that jazz. Is 1,000 meters hard coded? 1,000 meters for what? 1,000 meters for what hard-coded? I think the only value I have hard-coded is for the last chance that I flip to landing burn, and that's at 1,500 meters. Is that what you're talking about? So I have that as a last chance. It could flip into a landing burn sooner if it gets super close to the landing zone. Otherwise, 1,500 is the hard-coded deck, if you will, for when to transition into landing. But anyways, chat, have a good one. I'll catch you guys here tomorrow. If I don't see you, have a wonderful Monday, and we'll be back at it.